Under the intense glow of the full moon on the mountain peak, leader Yong-so praises the impressive memory of young Jin So-woon. Fully injured and bleeding heavily on top of the cliff, Jin So-woon replies that all of it was only possible because of him. The great leader of the Muram Alliance observes the injured boy and states that he has finally managed to restore all the lost records. Known as the Divine Sword, leader Yong-so expresses his gratitude to the young man for completing this difficult and vital mission. Fallen on the ground and badly hurt, Jin So-woon explains that he only memorized and restored everything because he was ordered to, but he feels something is wrong. Outraged by the situation, young Jin So-woon questions if the reward for all his effort will just be a miserable end. Wielding his sword, the leader warns that someone with such valuable secrets would become a major threat if they allied with the demonic cult. Pointing the sharp blade toward the young man, he coldly declares that the boy must vanish from the world for the sake of justice. Even gravely wounded, Jin So-woon gives a mocking, sarcastic laugh upon hearing the justification about this grand cause. The young man continues to mock the man's solemn words and questions what danger could remain for a completely ruined alliance. Jin So-woon openly mocks him, recalling that the alliance was already defeated by the demonic cult and fled just to save their own skins. With a dark, threatening look, the leader firmly guarantees that the alliance will still defeat their enemies and raise its banner once more. The young man fearlessly uses irony, remembering how they sacrificed innocent people as shield protection during their escape to the North Sea. He firmly states that seeing this alliance prioritize noble causes over human lives makes it hard to tell who the true evil really is. The leader is overcome with rage upon hearing those harsh words and immediately accuses the boy of being corrupted by the enemy. About to throw himself into the great abyss, Jin So-woon pours his heart out, saying he regrets having trusted the fate of his sect to them. He looks at his own hands covered in blood and makes the final decision to control how the end of his life will be. The young warrior smiles as he hurls himself into the void of the cliff, preferring to end his own life rather than fall at the hands of that leader. As he plunges down the steep rocks, he silently laments that his perfect memory turned his existence into a living nightmare. He painfully recalls the moment the Great War began, when all the young members of his small sect were drafted to fight. Since the demonic cult was far too strong, the Alliance used the young warriors as human shields to escape during the massacre. In an attempt to save his brothers, the young man accepted the proposal to memorize all the ancient records of the Alliance out of pure desperation, falling through the tree branches. He questions whether he should have fought harder in the battle or trained in martial arts with more dedication. The young man deeply laments receiving such a useless ability from the heavens instead of a formidable internal energy power. On the brink of collapse, the mysterious bracelet on his wrist glows intensely, while a profound regret takes over the young man. He wished from the bottom of his heart that he had enough strength to protect himself and all his beloved sect brothers. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the sunny environment, asking if he is going to keep lying there or if he will finally get up off the ground. Someone pokes his head using a wooden sword and calls him a complete fool for passing out so fast during training. Clenching the wooden sword tightly, Jin So-woon complains irritably, thinking that this is just another cursed memory from his life. He struggles to get up with difficulty, while trying to deal with the intense physical pain he feels in his battered body. The young man falls into pure despair upon realizing that the pain of that memory is incredibly real and hurts in an unbearable way. Opening his eyes wide, he gets extremely confused seeing several disciples lined up holding wooden swords at the location. The young man looks around, completely perplexed, and begins to recognize the exact place where he finds himself in that unusual moment. He realizes incredulously that he is back at the training grounds of the Taya sect, where he used to spend the days of his youth. Two younger disciples from the sect observe the young man's strange reaction, completely failing to understand anything that is happening there. Jin So-woon's face turns red and his eyes fill with tears as he faces the familiar expressions of those old companions once again. Without thinking twice, the young man takes a quick step forward and advances toward his young friends with sheer determination. The young man pulls the two companions into a tight, emotional hug, catching both of them completely by surprise in the middle of the courtyard. The pink-haired girl gets completely embarrassed by his attitude and asks what came over him to act in such a weird way. The other disciple is also left clueless by the reaction and asks in surprise what happened to their senior brother to prompt such a sudden act. The other disciples around begin whispering among themselves, thinking the young man ate something spoiled to snap in such a strange manner. Crying with emotion, he still believes that all of this is just his life flashing before his eyes right before final judgment. He smiles with a genuine look, thinking that at least seeing the faces of his living brothers again is a wonderful experience before the end. He affectionately squeezes the girl's cheek and nostalgically admits that he even missed the constant scolding she used to give him. The young man pinches the youth's cheek, remembering the past, and says he would wash the sex blankets with him 1,000 times if necessary. A rival holding a wooden sword mocks Jin So-woon, asking if he is faking madness out of fear of facing the duel. The arrogant rival makes a direct threat, saying he will beat up the younger brothers if the protagonist does not pick up the sword to fight. Jin So-woon gets completely discouraged upon realizing that even in his final memory, that unbearable guy had to show up to hassle him. He remembers Jai Chi-leong very well, a rich and spoiled youth who used training sessions to brutally beat other disciples. Recalling that the sect endured beatings out of fear of losing sponsorship, Jin So-woon finally decides to grab the wooden sword for the fight. If the heavens want me to beat you down even in this final memory, I have no choice but to take my revenge on you. Furious at the young man's boldness, the rival charges forward with extreme aggression, holding the wooden sword firmly. Jin So-woon watches every movement of his opponent with a cold, serene gaze, maintaining absolute focus on the approaching fight. He perfectly recognizes the technique used by the enemy, called the triple phantom blade, which caused him so much suffering in the past. This technique was taught by a wanderer and possesses a rather violent style, with fierce strikes focused on aggression. The attack intentionally aims toward the opponent's eyes, leaving the young disciples defenseless against the threat. Back then, he lacked the strength to dodge or counterattack such a dirty move. But the current situation has changed completely. Jin So-woon dodges the attack with incredible ease, proving that a cheap trick like that will never work again. The rival's eyes widen in shock as he realizes his lethal strike was avoided effortlessly by the boy. In his previous life, the protagonist spent long years locked inside the Alliance archives, studying secret manuals and techniques. Compared to the legendary martial arts he had to memorize, his rival's technique is nothing more than child's play. He had to memorize thousands of complex manuals under immense pressure, featuring infinitely superior combat forms and styles. As the enemy advances desperately in the present, Jin So-woon can clearly see every single opening in that ridiculous attack. His eyes glow brightly as he calculates the exact millisecond needed to execute a devastating counterattack on his rival. He moves at lightning speed, sliding across the courtyard floor to catch his opponent completely off guard. Using the basic technique of the Taiya sect, the young man delivers a precise, crushing blow right in the middle of the arrogant rival's face. Hit with extreme violence, the aggressor bleeds from the nose and freaks out in shock, unable to believe the power behind such a basic technique. Jin So-woon approaches with a sly smile and whispers in the guy's ear, asking if receiving this punishment feels nice. The young man feels a deep satisfaction in his chest at managing to give that bully a beating, using the art of his own beloved sect. He lands another strike on the guy's head, cleansing his soul after spending years silently swallowing so much humiliation in the past. The heavy impact causes the rich boy to collapse onto the ground, completely disoriented under the perplexed gazes of the surrounding disciples. Fallen and trembling on the ground, the aggressor still tries to rise while Jin So-woon looks down at him with total indifference. The spoiled brat roars in anger, outraged at being defeated by a common disciple using what he considered trash art. With his face covered in blood and consumed by hatred, the bully completely loses his cool and begins raving out of control. He tries to lunge in desperation, shouting threats that the protagonist will pay a heavy price for daring to strike back. However, before he can do anything, the guy passes out face down on the ground, leaving Jin So-woon surprised by his weakness. One of the children watching the fight is left stunned with their mouth wide open, unable to contain their shock at this quick outcome. All the younger disciples begin shouting and cheering wildly over the impressive victory of their senior brother. Looking up at the sunny sky, Jin So-eun concludes that he can now move on in peace to the afterlife without carrying any more regrets. Suddenly, he takes a powerful punch right in the middle of his face, which brutally wakes him from that supposed illusion. The pink-haired girl fumes with anger and asks if he has completely lost his mind by beating up the wealthy heir. She complains desperately that the sect will lose its sponsorship money, while the young man feels real physical pain on his face. Feeling the sting of the blow and the swelling on his skin, the young man finally begins to wonder why that memory hurts for real. He backs away in fear upon realizing that this scene is not a memory passing before his demise. The pink-haired girl gives a dark smile, making it clear that he is in deep trouble at her hands. She delivers another devastating blow, sending the young man flying through the air for spouting so much nonsense. The young man crashes unconscious onto the courtyard floor, feeling his awareness slip away completely after the beating. The disciples panic, thinking he has passed away, while the protagonist finally understands that he has traveled back in time. The scene shifts to show the quiet interior of an infirmary room filled with medicine cabinets. Jin So-eun appears lying comfortably in a bed with bandages on his cheek, resting after the incident. Waking up in the infirmary after being knocked out by his younger sister, the young man takes advantage of the calm to organize his thoughts. He reviews history, remembering how the demonic cult returned and destroyed the Miram Alliance in a devastating war. The Taya sect ended up nearly extinct for being part of that miserable alliance during the bloody clashes. Because he possessed an extraordinary memory, the protagonist ended up locked in a room to read stacks of ancient records. The Alliance leadership gave him the thankless task of memorizing and restoring every last book they owned. He promised to etch every word into his mind without failing a single character to fulfill the desperate order. In exchange, the young man begged on his knees for the leaders to spare his beloved sect brothers from the battlefields. However, the cruel leaders decided to eliminate him, considering his knowledge a great threat to the future of the Alliance. But after throwing himself into the abyss to perish, he ended up waking back up in the courtyard of his sect in the prime of his youth. Looking toward the future with newfound determination, he realizes he has been granted the perfect opportunity to rewrite history. Thanks to all the memories of martial arts manuals preserved in his mind, he is able to grasp the techniques. It was precisely thanks to this knowledge that he managed to defeat the bully rival with extreme ease in the courtyard. Deep in thought in the infirmary, Jin So-eun still tries to understand how he was able to defeat someone he could never beat before. He notices with surprise that although his body and clothes returned to the past, only the mysterious dragon bracelet came back with him. He recalls that this valuable bracelet from the demonic cult glowed intensely at the exact moment he nearly perished. While questioning the power of the artifact, the young man suddenly hears indignant shouts from outside demanding his presence. He gets up curiously from the bed upon realizing that a major commotion is taking place right at the entrance of the facility. Outside, the influential leader of the merchant guild fumes in rage, demanding to find whoever hurt his beloved son. The sect leader tries to calm the angry man, apologizing and promising to reprimand the young man for what happened. Jin So-eun recognizes the voice of the bully's father, a very arrogant man who constantly humiliates the Taya sect without mercy. Hearing the merchant spew all his venom, the young man gets furious seeing his leader lower herself to beg for forgiveness. This sad scene brings back bitter memories of the war, where a lack of respect and resources led the sect to complete slaughter. He painfully remembers watching his dear companions fall one by one on the battlefield due to being far too weak. In the face of these painful memories, the youth reflects on the true meaning of receiving a second chance. He recalls his own tragic end when he leaped off the cliff without any way to save his friends' lives. Determined to change that miserable fate, the young man bites and snaps the toothpick with his teeth, showing his resolve. With a resolute look, Jin So-woon steps out of the recovery room and prepares to step into that unfair argument. He firmly decides that he will no longer allow anyone to belittle his sect or treat his friends like trash. Immersed in an intimidating aura, the protagonist decides it is time to deliver a devastating response to that rich man. Outside, the arrogant man turns his back while the sect leader continues bowing and expressing gratitude. The merchant arrogantly warns that he will forgive them just this once, but demands absolute submission and respect from everyone. From atop the roof, Jin So-woon suddenly appears, saying in a calm tone that he heard someone was looking for him. He bows mockingly and introduces himself using the exact same derogatory terms the man used. The rich man and his servant look up startled as they see the young man standing mockingly on the edge of the roof. The merchant shouts full of rage upon recognizing the youth who dared to beat up his beloved son in the courtyard. The young man sighs and mocks him, saying he does not understand the offense, since the age gap between them is not even that large. The two stare at each other with confused faces after the nonsensical, provocative joke uttered by the young warrior. Jin So-woon pretends to apologize and tauntingly asks if the man is going to cry too when his son gets beaten up at the academy. The merchant roars with hatred, saying that insignificant sect exists only to pamper his son all the way to the academy. The young man ironically recalls that over 10 disciples were badly beaten by his son and left bedridden for several days. He asserts that someone who gets beaten by a common disciple should never dream of entering a respected academy in the world. The man turns red with anger and nearly has a nervous breakdown while his servant tries to hold him back. He threatens to cut off all sponsorship to the sect and asks if the arrogant youth has the nerve to face the consequences of that. The protagonist gazes at the man without showing a single shred of fear or hesitation in the face of the sponsorship threat. The merchant laughs mockingly, saying the Taya sect is declining and that he can fund any other sect he desires. He warns with contempt that without his sponsorship, the sect will starve as early as the next day due to having no means of support. The Taya sect belongs to the official group of the 108 sects, but currently it is merely a shadow of its glorious past. Sects in this group hold the privilege of sending a student directly to the Muram Academy through special admission. The rich man's son joined the Taya sect solely to obtain that valuable recommendation and enter without taking the entrance test. He paid a huge sum of money to be accepted as a student and secure his direct spot at the prestigious academy. Instead of backing down and apologizing, Jin So-woon takes a step forward and tells the man to cancel the sponsorship immediately. The young man smiles mockingly and guarantees he will take full responsibility before asking a very provocative question. Firmly gripping the man's wrist, he reminds him that less than 1 year remains before the official evaluation of recommended students. Jin So-woon mocks him mercilessly, asking if they came to a weak sect because all the others rejected the useless boy. The man becomes completely frantic, while the young man recalls that in his past life, the sect fulfilled his every whim. Trembling with anger, the wicked merchant asks how a nobody dares to speak to him in such a disrespectful and bold manner. In his previous life, the man humiliated everyone, saying his guild was the sole salvation for that forgotten sect. However, the protagonist remembers very well what happened in the other timeline. Right after the rich boy was accepted, he leans close to his rival's ear and gives a cryptic warning that leaves the man deeply terrified and speechless. The wealthy man's eyes widen, gripped by genuine terror, unable to comprehend how a boy uncovered such deep secrets. The rich man remains completely frozen on the ground, while Jin So-woon walks away with slow, steady steps without looking back. He understood that begging for protection from others is useless, and that only developing his own strength will guarantee salvation. Furious at the public humiliation, the merchant tries to charge at the young man shouting, but ends up restrained by his servant. That was the valuable lesson the young warrior learned firsthand by experiencing up close the pain of his first tragic end. The issue is that right after, he realizes he has not yet planned the practical details of how he will grow stronger quickly. Later, he decides to head to a dark, isolated cave in the mountains where he knows hidden secrets lie. Inside the cavern filled with spiderwebs, Jin So-woon focuses his mind on the absolute goal of becoming powerful rapidly. He knows full well that the current techniques of the Taiya sect are far too weak, which is why he needs an efficient alternative. The only fast solution is to find and consume the 10,000-year fire ginseng, a legendary elixir packed with internal energy. He has etched into his mind the elixir register of the Alliance, which contained the exact locations of these rare herbs. The plan was simple, but upon reaching the location, he runs into a monstrous, disgusting spider guarding the precious elixir. Even before that bizarre creature, the warrior decides that acquiring that plant is the first step toward his success. He advances full of courage, wielding his sword, and attempts to defeat the beast with a single direct strike from his sect's art. He stops midway, remembering that his current power is weak and that confronting the monster head-on would be pure suicide. Instead of fighting with the sword, the young man decides to use his intelligence and lights a torch to exploit the beast's weak spot. Smiling with great cunning, he recalls a valuable lesson learned while reading thousands of manuals in the secret archive. He understood that skill with the sword is not always everything when simple. Far more lethal strategies can be used. The webs and the creature quickly begin catching fire, leaving the monster in pure terror as it burns alive. Jin So-woon watches the beast get destroyed by the flames, celebrating satisfied that the most important thing of all is emerging victorious. He celebrates joyfully and thanks the ancient records for revealing the monster's fatal weakness to fire. The young man shouts excitedly and mockingly criticizes the Alliance itself for keeping all that valuable knowledge locked away in manuals. The manual detailed that the human-faced spider had a tough carapace, but its webbing burned very easily. With the dangerous creature completely defeated and dead, the path to the precious ginseng becomes clear for the warrior. He approaches the small rocky niche where the legendary fire root grew in secret over thousands of years. Jin So-woon walks eagerly toward the illuminated spot, ready to consume the plant and absorb its pure energy. After swallowing the legendary elixir, he sits down to meditate and assess how much his internal energy managed to evolve. However, the young man falls into despair upon realizing that the amount of energy gained was ridiculously smaller than expected. He swallowed the whole rare herb, but his body managed to absorb only a tiny fraction of that divine elixir. Jin So-woon cries out of sheer frustration, blaming his sect's flawed meditation method for the paltry energy absorption. He falls to his knees on the cave floor, completely devastated to see his initial plan for gaining strength fail miserably. If his energy cultivation continues growing at such a slow pace, he knows that future disaster will repeat itself. Thinking about the catastrophic events approaching, he feels far too weak to change the course of things. He laments on the dark ground, saying that with this level of power, he will never manage to save his beloved sect from destruction. He remembers that when the Great War breaks out, the weaker disciples will be used as human shields in the massacre. To prevent his companions from perishing in vain, the young man needs to become an influential figure in the Alliance before the conflict. The first step toward this major goal was entering the academy within 1 year, but his energy remains insufficient. Digging his nails into the stone, he falls into panic upon realizing that at this rate, he will not even pass the initial selection. The young man screams with all his strength, overcome by panic at seeing all his effort go to waste and nothing change in the end. As water drops fall from the ceiling, the warrior forces his exhausted mind to seek a new solution to gain more power. Looking at his own reflection in the puddle, he realizes he needs to find another legendary elixir that is even more powerful. Suddenly, the young man's eyes widen as he remembers the divine elixir from Manhwa that his rival was supposed to receive. In his past life, Jai Qiiliang's father spent a small fortune to purchase the plum blossom pill from Manhwa. However, one day before the boy could take the pill, the legendary medicine vanished from the manor without leaving a single trace. Since the thief's identity was was never discovered, and the theft has not happened yet. Jin So-woon sees the perfect opportunity. He knows that any criminal always leaves clues behind, so he can figure out who stole that elixir, turning to the deep memories of the Alliance archives. He begins mentally tracking all the reports from that era. Determined to succeed, the young man focuses his mind on the monthly report from the Hefei branch to locate the thief. Thousands of pages and data pass at high speed through his analytical mind, processing the ancient records. The stream of memories crosses the Alliance archives, connecting all the clues regarding the suspects operating in the region. Finally, the boy locates the exact record. He needs to solve the theft and claim the pill before anyone else. Calmly analyzing the mission reports and entry records, he searches his memories for any valuable clue. He cross-references information from hundreds of ancient books to deduce who had the capacity and motive for the secret theft. His sharp deductions point directly toward a dangerous wanderer who is highly skilled in stealthy robberies. Beyond him, other names of renowned swordsmen emerge as possible accomplices or key pieces of that plan. Jin So-woon joins his hands in deep concentration while bringing together all the loose pieces of that puzzle. He realizes with joy that acting like a living library in the past has finally borne valuable fruit. With a very confident smile on his face, the boy decides he will take the plum blossom pill for himself before the thief does. The mysterious dragon bracelet on his wrist glows suddenly, emitting a green aura full of spiritual power. Back in the cave, he gets quite surprised to feel a strange reaction from the artifact after defeating the beast. Looking at his own wrist, he does not understand the reason the artifact began to shine without any prior command. A green energy in the shape of a dragon wraps around his arm, covering the carapace of that defeated creature on the ground. The intense glow of the artifact channels the residual energy from the spider's core, siphoning the monster's vital essence. Creature's red core is entrapped by the mystical energy, becoming fully purified by the dragon's force. The evil and poisonous energy is completely filtered out, transforming into perfectly pure spiritual power. Jin So-woon remains in absolute shock upon realizing that the bracelet is absorbing the monster's core and passing it on to him. A burst of light illuminates the interior of the cave, startling the birds flying near the rocks. The young man absorbs all that purified power, feeling his internal energy increase in an overwhelming manner. The reddish aura of the beast dissipates, giving way to a clean and perfectly balanced blue energy in his body. His eyes glow intensely as he feels his sea of internal energy finally expand with full force. Laughing with extreme happiness, the young man clenches his fist in awe of the gigantic leap in his cultivation power. He recalls taking the dragon bracelet as a trophy after winning a nearly impossible battle in the past. He kept that artifact in memory of his fallen companions. Unaware that it possessed this hidden ability, the young man throws a punch into the air to test his new strength and feels beams of pure energy slice through the environment. The crushing impact of his blow shatters the stone wall, generating a terrifying shock wave throughout the cave. The bracelet purified the monster's evil energy, merging it seamlessly into his traditional meditation method. Satisfied, the warrior realizes that the heavens have not abandoned him, and that he now possesses real power to forge his path. In town, people talk at a banquet about the fortune spent by the merchant to buy the famous plum blossom pill. The bully's father receives congratulations, celebrating the bright future that his money bought for his spoiled son. Showing off for everyone, young Jai Chiliang boasts, saying that elixir from Manhwa is second to none. He brags about the rarity of the medicine, while the leader's daughter observes everything in silence with a distant look. Hong Sa Ryan thinks irritably about Jin So-woon, wondering where that foolish boy was hiding at that moment. She remembers the day of the argument and feels a pang of concern and longing over her companion's sudden disappearance. The young woman regrets not taking the fight in Jin So-woon's place to prevent the boy from getting dragged into the mess. She believes the young man decided to leave the sect after the incident, thinking he was doing what was best to protect everyone. While the spoiled brat keeps trash-talking the boy, the young woman deepens her frustration, calling her friends stupid in her mind. Suddenly, one of the younger disciples comes running in excitement, holding plates piled high with tasty food from the party. The little boy accidentally bumps into Jai Chia-Leong, knocking the bully onto the floor in a hilarious and clumsy way. The children surround the young woman happily, offering the festive dishes while the rich boy cries on the floor, completely ignored, ruined and bruised. The spoiled brat leaves grumbling that he will take revenge on everyone as soon as that banquet ends. The girl smiles warmly at the little ones, remembering that they were going hungry and need to eat very well. One of the girls pokes Hong's forehead, teasing her older sister for thinking about her beloved Jin So-woon once again. Hong turns completely red with embarrassment and tries to scold the children for saying such awkward things about her. The boys decide to save delicious pieces of meat and rice cakes, especially for when Jin So-woon returns. Seeing the children's sincere affection for her senior brother, the young woman feels her heart warm up and smiles softly. To break the emotional mood, she grabs the little one's food and starts eating, playfully teasing them in the middle of the courtyard. She jokingly mocks them, saying that if they do not eat fast, she will devour the entire feast by herself, leaving nothing for anyone. The little boys fall into comical panic and begin devouring their plates, desperate not to lose out on the delicious meal. Laughing with the group at sunset, Hong thinks of Jin So-woon and wonders where he was off to, leaving the kids missing him. The sun sets on the horizon while the young woman lets out a sigh, calling her companion a big idiot in her thoughts. Night falls over the Taiyasect under the serene glow of the full moon, setting the stage for the great warrior's return. Meanwhile, at the grand banquet, the rich man raises a lively toast with his guests, celebrating the acquisition of the elixir. Jai Chia-Leong drinks and has a great time in the hall, completely oblivious to the fate awaiting him in the dark. Dancers in elegant garments perform in the center of the celebration, creating a joyful atmosphere of pure festivity. Outside, a hidden figure moves swiftly over the roofs of the complex without drawing anyone's attention. The wanderer Ju Zhang manages to break into the guild's secret vault and escapes, leaping away with the red box containing the pill. The thief launches himself through the darkness of the night with extreme agility, thrilled to have secured that valuable treasure. Landing firmly in the forest, he laughs to himself, celebrating the total success of his impressive and clean robbery. Removing his mask, the intruder mocks the weak security of that vault and excitedly prepares to gaze upon the elixir. Upon opening the elegant box, the legendary plum blossom pill glows with magnificent splendor and wafts a tempting aroma. The thief salivates with greed as he smells the concentrated fragrance and senses the pure energy emanating from within that rare pill. He cackles loudly, planning to use the medicine to master a supreme technique, without noticing Jin So-woon behind him in the woods. However, before he can take a single step, a sword emerges from the shadows and strikes down the criminal without an ounce of mercy. The thief's body falls bleeding to the ground as a mysterious swordsman in white emerges, holding his blade. The man takes the box from the corpse's hand, saying in an ironic tone that he too desperately needs that precious medicine, cloaked in a dangerous aura. The new assailant smiles with satisfaction, overtaking the treasure without putting in any effort. He coldly justifies the killing, asserting that his desire for the pill outweighs any moral rule. Box in hand, the guy prepares to leave, unaware that he is stepping into the trap set by Jin So-woon. The story backtracks a few days to when Jin So-woon visited a hunting supply shop in that town. Inside the venue filled with bear traps and bows, the hunter serves the young strategist at the wooden counter. The shop owner observes the customer carefully, noticing that he is no ordinary hunter from that region. Jin So-woon walks further into the shop, stating in a friendly tone that he heard the hunter sells rare items. The young man asks straight to the point with a smile if the merchant carries traps made to catch people. The hunter finds the question curious and laughs at the boy's boldness while continuing to focus on his work at the counter. He brags about having traps for rabbits and gigantic bears, but denies selling equipment to capture human beings. Jin So-woon tosses a bag of coins and asks for the largest bear traps, unbothered about ruining the animal's hide. He demands an extremely sensitive mechanism that triggers at the lightest touch, with brutal force to snap a leg. With a wicked expression on his face, Jin So-woon decides to order something that will send the target straight to the next world. The hunter grows quite suspicious and worried about the dark intentions of that innocent-looking boy. Back in the present, the swordsman in white looks at the box with the elixir, celebrating the extreme ease of the heist. He mocks the dead thief, saying he expected far more trouble to eliminate someone so famous in the martial world. The man admires the valuable reward with an arrogant smile, failing to notice the presence of his own partner at the location. Another swordsman emerges from the shadows and praises the efficiency of his companion for killing their rival so quickly. It is revealed that both are members of the 5 swordsmen of Dian Kang, and they laugh in relief for having worried over nothing. They agree to hide the thief's body so that local authorities list him merely as a missing person. Before making the corpse disappear, the 2 criminals decide to take a fascinated look at the Manhwa medicine. Upon opening the container, the intense glow of the pill illuminates the greedy and admiring faces of the 2 swordsmen. Squeezed right between the 2 of them, a masked Jin So-woon appears and murmurs that the medicine is great, but only serves one. The 3 stare at each other for a second, and the criminals fall into absolute shock at the intruder's presence right there. The swordsman attacks in surprise, but Jin So-woon snatches the box with extreme speed and leaps backward, dodging the strike. Showing the box in his hand, the protagonist gives a mocking smile from behind his mask, leaving his rivals outraged. Angered to the extreme, the 2 swordsmen draw their blades and charge with everything to capture the masked boy. The attacker strikes with fury, shouting that this will be the boy's punishment for coveting something beyond his station. Jin So-woon runs away laughing and mockingly asks if the Dian Kang sect teaches its students to steal and then call others thieves. He shouts back, reminding them that they were the first to murder the original thief to steal the precious pill. One of the swordsmen leaps from the treetops, attempting to cut down the protagonist with a violent downward strike. The blade hits the ground, violently shattering the earth, while Jin So-woon dodges with absolute perfection. As he runs, Jin So-woon mocks him, offering a friendly warning for his pursuer to watch where he steps. The very next second, the swordsman steps directly onto the huge bear trap, which snaps shut with brutal force. The man falls into absolute shock, feeling the metal teeth crush the bones of his leg in agony. Jin So-woon looks back with an air of pure mockery, appreciating the perfect result of his deadly trap in the woods. The injured swordsman sweats cold, agonizing in pain as he observes his leg destroyed by the steel trap. A deafening roar of pure pain echoes through the dark forest, completely shattering the silence of that moonlit night. His partner runs in desperation to offer aid, while Jin So-woon sarcastically reminds them that he warned them to be careful. The trapped man snarls in rage and calls the boy a miserable coward for resorting to such low, treacherous tricks. Furious, he unsheathes his sword, demanding that the masked intruder reveal his true identity without delay. Jin So-woon calmly crouches down to the ground and picks up a heavy stone, facing his attacker without showing fear. The young man mocks him, asking if he really wants him to introduce himself by giving the name of his sect and his master. Tossing the rock into the air, he mocks him, saying that this cliché of formal introductions is completely outdated. The rock falls right on top of another trap hidden under dry leaves, triggering the mechanism with violence. Seeing the mechanism snap, the man understands that the new and true owner of the elixir is that masked boy. Jin So-woon points at the 2, firmly declaring that they are the original thief's killers and will be going to prison. The young man recalls how he discovered the truth after noticing that the original thief disappeared without a trace back then. No new powerful figure emerged at the time, so he investigated everyone who had small gains in internal energy. Thus, he deduced that 2 men killed the thief and split the medicine, gaining energy without any justification. The criminals shout in shock upon seeing that the masked figure knows exactly who they are and the crime they committed. Jin So-woon coldly confirms that he knows them very well as respected members of the prestigious Dian Kang sect. The swordsman makes a desperate threat, asking if the young man does not fear the fury of the Grand Alliance and his sect. Jin So-woon openly mocks him, asking since when a thieving murderer has the nerve to report someone else for stealing. Furious to the extreme, the attacker charges, striking with blind rage to try to crush the opponent who is mocking him. He strikes the earth with violence, destroying the traps on the ground and shouting that those tricks will not work on him. The impact hurls several traps into the air while Jin So-woon glides back lightly, dodging the debris. The rival smiles arrogantly, thinking he managed to nullify the young man's strategy by crushing the ground with force. Jin So-woon fakes terror as he sees the traps falling, pretending he was caught off guard by his enemy's move. Excited, the two partners advance together, promising to tear off the boy's mask and rip him apart without mercy. The protagonist remains completely calm in the shadows, observing the desperate movements of his two attackers. Jin So-woon turns around and runs quickly among the trees, making the criminals sprint in hot pursuit. One of the villains warns that the area the young man is heading toward might contain more traps hidden under the leaves. The other laughs mockingly, reassuring him that they only need to step in the exact footprints left by the boy on the ground. Pleased with their brilliant idea, the two pursuers leap and step precisely onto the footsteps in the woods. They follow the trail made by Jin So-woon, believing they have found a safe path through that terrain. Their feet touch the ground right where the protagonist's footprints were marked over the layer of dry leaves. Cackling with pride, the villains shout that his cheap trap trick will not work against their sharp wits. Jin So-woon does a backflip in mid-air, landing gracefully just a few feet away from his pursuers. He skids along the ground and turns to face the pair of killers with a look loaded with mystery and disdain. Confident, the attackers mock him, saying they have cornered the boy and that this will be the tragic end of his short life. However, at the exact instant the two villains' feet land firmly on the footsteps left on the forest floor, Jin So-woon's eye shines with intense malice upon seeing that his psychological trap worked perfectly. The footprints were actually the exact spots where the traps lay hidden, waiting for the villain's weight. Behind his black mask, the protagonist cracks a broad smile as he witnesses the naivety of his pursuers. Two gigantic bear traps snap shut simultaneously, crushing the legs of both men with violence. Blood squirts everywhere, and the villains roar in agony as their leg bones fracture under the metal. The sound of the violent impact and the spray of blood cut through the night's darkness in the forest, horrifying the pair. Fallen and completely defeated on the ground, they writhe in pain, unable to comprehend how they fell so stupidly for the trick. Walking calmly up to them, Jin So-woon sarcastically remarks that he was surprised they tried to follow in his footsteps. He reveals that he set dozens of traps side by side, and that missing his footprints by a single millimeter would prove fatal. The swordsman calls the boy a lunatic upon realizing that he walked down to the millimeter in the middle of dozens of traps. Desperate, the man asks how on earth he was able to move without missing a single millimeter in that minefield. Calmly wielding his sword, the young man answers that this was only possible thanks to his perfect, divine memory. He declares that this flawless memory was the single precious gift the heavens gave him in his entire existence. With a single swift slash, Jin So-woon eliminates both criminals at once, bringing an end to the threat under the light of the moon. Elsewhere, a grand traditional structure rises under the sunlight while influential leaders talk. A man thoughtfully holds his hot teacup while analyzing the information received about that region. This is Juj So-myeon, chief strategist of the Alliance, who questions whether the sect still belongs among the top peaks. Elder Namgung Tae. One confirms the information, but points out that several powerful sects have recently emerged. He openly suggests that it is high time to replace the weak Tai sect with a much stronger group. Juj So-myeon concludes that the elder is referring to the Iron Sword sect, confirming old rumors. Serving tea with a fake smile, the elder attempts to please the strategist, who already knows of his secret support for the rival sect. The strategist calmly reminds him that an official sect can only be replaced if it commits a major infraction. The elder maliciously insinuates that the Tae sect is committing major irregularities with its admission spot. He accuses the sect of turning the recommendation privilege into a purely lucrative commercial business. The strategist sets his cup on the table and questions whether the sect truly using its privileges in a dirty manner. With a dark smile, the elder claims that they are doing everything merely to feed their own greed. Birds sing in the trees around the pavilion. While the political conspiracy unfolds silently, the atmosphere turns quite tense and quiet for a few moments following the serious accusation made by the elder, falsely modest. The guy asks not to be misunderstood, claiming he does not want the spot for himself. He makes a dramatic pause, looking the strategist in the eye to try and convince him with his hypocritical speech. He argues that these privileges should honor only those who truly fought during hard times. The old hypocrite feigns heartbreak, saying he feels sorrow seeing the noble values of the alliance get lost. He offers the cup of tea with fake reverence, insisting that it is necessary to maintain the integrity of the organization. Meanwhile, at the inn during the night, Jin So-woon finishes his process and finally rests after absorbing the pill. Concentrating his internal energy, the young man feels the purified force flow freely through his meridians and body. Meditating bare-backed, blue spiritual energy wraps around his torso, strengthening his cultivation base to a surreal degree. Sweating heavily from the effort of meditation, he finally completes the full assimilation of the powerful medicine. Opening his eyes with an intense glow, the young man feels an absurd surge of internal energy surging through his veins. He rises from his meditation posture with a reinvigorated body, overflowing with a power he never possessed before. Impressed, he celebrates upon noticing that he gained over 30 years of pure internal energy from that divine elixir. With immense joy, the boy celebrates having surpassed all the cultivation power he held in his previous life. Putting on his clothes, the young man walks down the inn's wooden stairs, ready to satisfy the hunger consuming him. Seeing the worker sleeping on the tavern table, Jin So-woon approaches and calls him politely to order food. The clerk wakes up startled and feels relieved upon seeing that the young guest finally left his room after several days. So-woon explains that a lot has happened and urgently asks the boy to bring him any kind of food. The inn boy hesitates and warns that at that late hour of the night, the venue's kitchen is already closed. Smiling, the young man places a pile of silver coins on the table, paying in advance for a full week's stay. The clerk runs off happily to wake the cook, while So-woon thinks to himself that money resolves everything quickly. He recalls with satisfaction having used the dragon bracelet to obtain a generous amount of funds. The artifact did not work only on monsters, but could extract vitality from any living creature in the forest. It absorbed that vitality as internal energy, while leaving the animals downed without harming their hides. So-woon brought 4 flawless tiger hides to sell at the shop, leaving the hunter speechless at the counter. Back at the table, the young man reflects that having a source of income is great, but there is a serious problem regarding this ability. The power to absorb the strength of others is an extremely dangerous capacity, heavily condemned in the martial world. Anyone who sees this ability in action will think it is an evil art of the demonic cult. The Miram Alliance forbids the art of absorption, and the bracelet works just like that technique considered taboo. If they find out, everyone in the Taya sect will be in mortal danger, so he needs to keep it an absolute secret. The young attendant comes running back with platters full of delicious food, interrupting the boy's thoughts. With eyes sparkling with hunger, So-woon gets ready to devour the hearty feast prepared especially for him. As he gulps down the noodles, So-woon wonders why the attendant remains standing by his side, watching him eat. Curious, the attendant asks if the guest heard about the big gossip circulating all over town. He shares that the Jairiwong Merchant Guild recently held a grand party to celebrate the purchase of the pill. The boy reveals indignantly that the precious elixir was stolen right in the middle of the banquet, while So-woon feigns surprise. The boy praises the thief as a complete professional and warns that the Alliance sent investigators for the case. Hearing about the investigators, Jin So-woon chokes badly on his noodles and starts coughing right in the middle of the table. The boy fearfully serves some water, and So-woon quickly recovers, asking for more details about the Alliance's investigation. Deeply worried inside, the young man anxiously asks if the investigators found any clues or arrested anyone. He thinks in desperation that if they arrested someone, it will cause major trouble, with innocent people paying for his crime. The server reassures him, saying that the tracks vanished quickly and the team could not find any suspects. relieved that no one was caught. So-woon lets out a relieved laugh and feigns pity, saying the owner must be devastated. The boy mentions that the party ended early, but fortunately, another major banquet will be hosted in town. The young man freezes as he hears the server reveal that the new celebration belongs to the hated Iron Sword sect. The employee explains that the rival leader is turning 60 and will throw a massive 7-day party in the region. Jin So-woon recalls the past, confirming that this birthday party was a pivotal and deeply painful moment. Heartbroken, he remembers the horrific event involving his father in the other timeline. At that very same banquet, the cruel leader of the rival sect humiliated the Taya sect in front of every guest in the hall. Bleeding on the floor, his father was forced through a humiliation that destroyed his honor. Before the entire world, the man had to kneel before an entire crowd and beg for forgiveness from the rival sect's cruel leader. Back then, the main character watched everything helplessly and desperately, unable to protect his beloved father's honor. To make matters worse, all that shame happened because of a mistake Jin So-woon himself had made. In the present, the young man clenches his fist with all his strength, feeling his blood boil at that bitter memory. He swears to himself that this time, he will avoid any contact with the Iron Sword sect at all costs. Thanking the server for the meal, he gets up from the table with a determined look, ready to take control of his own destiny. He walks away with firm steps, ignoring the server calling after him, fully focused on his inner oath. He promises that he will never let his father go through such humiliation again in this second chance at life. However, reality does not always follow plans, and the very next second, a gigantic blade comes swinging down at him with fury. So-woon ends up right in the middle of the rival banquet, locked in a fierce duel against the grandson of the Iron Sword leader himself. Shocked, he wonders how he ended up in the exact place he swore to avoid at all costs. The story flashes back a few days, showing the courtyard of the Taya sect where the young disciples were training under the sun. Junpao collapses to the ground exhausted, complaining that his legs cannot take the heavy workout pace anymore. The three sect brothers rest together after completing 100 repetitive sword strikes. Lee Yunho drinks water and doubts that doing 100 downward strikes in the heat will help his sword skills. Junpao teases his brother, and Dunaho turns red, denying that he ever said he admired So-woon for beating up the bully. They laugh together until one of the little ones asks where Jin So-woon might be after his sudden disappearance. The youngest shows concern, remembering that their older brother had never been away for a whole week before. They theorize that he might have run away out of shame for beating up the heir of the town's wealthy guild. Their worry grows as they consider the chance that the boy abandoned the sect to protect them from revenge. Yunho admits that despite being annoying, So-woon was a good person when suddenly the group hears footsteps at the entrance. The little boy flashes a bright smile upon spotting his older brother walking back into the sect courtyard. Jin So-woon crosses the gates of the Taya sect, carrying a bulky bag on his back under the bright sunlight. He thinks that skipping the party will prevent his father's humiliation, but he remembers the continuous insults from the rival sect. Resolute, the young man cuts off his negative thoughts and reaffirms that he will not set foot in that rival banquet. He looks at the sign of his beloved sect, promising in his heart to protect everyone from any future danger. He concludes that not just him, but no one from the Taya sect should attend that enemy leader's birthday. While planning a good excuse to convince everyone, So-woon is surprised by the disciples running toward him. The protagonist greets them with a smile, asking if they came to welcome him because they missed him during his long absence. All the boys crowd around him excitedly, asking him to teach them the amazing technique he used in the previous duel. With fatherly affection, So-woon pats the children's heads and asks if they behaved well during sect training. The cheerful mood is broken by an extraordinarily furious shout from someone approaching the group in the courtyard. It is Jin Taeson, the hall master and So-woon's father, who demands to know where his son has been missing all this time. seeing his beloved father alive, and instantly fills Jin So-woon's eyes with emotional tears. The young man lunges into a warm, emotional hug, celebrating the beauty of this second chance at life. Annoyed, his father punches him on the head, thinking the crazy behavior is just an excuse to avoid a lecture. Jin Taizan rants that the mess almost got the sect kicked out, while Hong comments that the beating has already been delivered. Jai Chialiang reappears shouting in outrage upon discovering that Jin So-woon has finally returned to the sect. The spoiled boy points his finger, accusing So-woon of using a dirty trick in training, and demands an immediate rematch. Jin So-woon simply flashes a highly sarcastic smile upon seeing his rival insist on getting beaten up again. The boy places his hands over his face, pretending to be blind, and sarcastically mocks the bully's presence in front of him. So-woon says ironically with a comical tone that the pill's aura is so strong he cannot even look at the guy. Jai Chialiang turns red with embarrassment and fury upon being reminded of the elixir his family lost in the theft. The spoiled boy leaves in anger while Hong asks why So-woon decided to provoke the guy about the pill. As his father and Hong comment on the young man's strange behavior, So-woon opens the bulky bag full of joy. Inside the bag is a mountain of expensive treats, and So-woon generously hands them all out to the younger disciples. Hong complains that he should have bought real food, but So-woon just asks her to stop nagging and eat. Hong murmurs in surprise, realizing that So-woon spent all his money to bring presents for the sect. She explains that the merchant guild will no longer bother them and asks the boy to stop carrying everything on his own. Looking deep into his eyes, the girl furiously demands that he never vanish again without leaving word like he did before. So-woon blushes completely at the girl's genuine concern and looks at her emotionally in the middle of the courtyard. The young man feels confused because he was not actually worried about the guild, but he decides to roll with the affection. Upon asking about the rival party, Jin Taizan shocks the young man by revealing that the Tai sect is also going to the banquet. Jin So-woon panics, knowing that the decision to go has already been made, and that refusing would be seen as an insult. With no valid excuses to skip, the young man realizes he will need to figure out a new plan to handle the situation. While So-woon reflects anxiously, Jin Taizan suddenly turns to his son with a serious expression. The father firmly announces that he will go to the Iron Sword sect banquet alone, telling everyone else to stay at the sect. So-woon is shocked by his father's protective attitude, not understanding why he wants to go to the party alone. At that moment, the youngest disciple approaches Jin So-woon holding a wrapper full of saved rice cakes. So-woon and Hong are stunned as they recognize that those treats came from Jairion's guild banquet. The little boy shyly explains that he saved the food from the banquet for days, just to share it with his older brother. The youngest's pure gesture moves Jin So-woon, who sees the affection and loyalty of his companions in a tangible way. So-woon flashes a genuine, touched smile, realizing how blessed he is to have such good people by his side. Without hesitation, the young man grabs the dried out cake and devours it in one bite, leaving Hong shocked in the courtyard. So-woon praises the taste of the treat with his mouth full, while the youngest dramatically complains that half of it was his. Laughing, the protagonist apologizes and offers his entire stash of expensive treats to compensate the little boy. The boy's eyes sparkle with joy upon learning he will get a mountain of goodies instead. As the children happily bicker over the treats in the background, So-woon turns with a serious look to talk with Hong. He reflects that even if they skip this banquet, the rival sect will keep pursuing and provoking them anyway. The young man concludes that running from the situation will solve nothing, and that running from problems is not the right path. He refuses to allow his family and the innocent children to keep enduring humiliations from their rival. With a confident and fearless smile, So-woon declares that they will indeed go to the Iron Sword sect banquet. On the day of the rival leader's birthday celebration, a huge caravan of guests arrives at the lavish temple. The The Taya sect group walks in a single line through the stone corridors under the watchful eyes of other martial artists. In front of the Iron Sword sect gate, the hall leader gives a stern warning regarding everyone's behavior. King Chaseok, master of the Gwawa Hall, loudly demands that no one start trouble or act irresponsibly. So Woon jokes, saying that the master is staring right at him, as if he came just to be his babysitter. The master complains that the boy is already up to no good and questions why he insisted so much on coming along, so Woon fires back, asking what he should do if people provoke him. As he watches members of Jairyong's guild walk past, the boy grumbles that the master sounds just like his father, while Jin Taesin walks silently and thoughtfully up ahead. So Woon notices that his father has been quiet and downhearted from the moment he learned his son would attend the banquet. After taking a light smack on the head from the master, so Woon promises to hold firm, even if they insult the sect's founders. Suddenly, the group stops in the hallway as they notice another delegation of martial artists approaching and blocking the path. Members of a rival sect arrogantly demand that the Taya group get out of the way to let them through. King Chaseok immediately gets annoyed, shouting that they have no right to cut in line in the hallway. The Taya master grabs the rude guy's shoulder, demanding respect, while the rival reacts very provocatively. The rival's companion calmly steps in, claiming they came from far away and sent someone ahead to hold their spot. The young man arrogantly introduces himself, revealing that he is Gu Yongsa, son of the master of the influential Cheongjik Manor. Recognizing the high-status name of the manor, the wealthy coward decides to back off to avoid unnecessary trouble. The Jairyong merchant bows and humbly apologizes, immediately stepping aside for the Cheongjik Manor group. Watching the whole scene out of the corner of his eye, Jin So-woon instantly recognizes that faction from his past. He remembers well that Gu Yongsa became a close buddy of Jai Chia-liang, proving that trash attracts trash. The two spoiled brats use their financial power to treat the Taya sect disciples like mere servants. Gu Yongsa scoffs at the fearful merchant and maliciously begins to mock the simple robes of the Taya sect. Other martial artists whisper in disdain, doubting the Taya sect's ability to remain among the official peaks, as they say that the Iron Sword sect will take their place. Jin So-woon appears out of nowhere and places his hands on their shoulders. With a provocative smile, the boy pretends he has never heard of that manor, mockingly insulting the faction. Gu Yongsa turns around in complete shock and anger, unable to believe the direct disrespect from that unknown youth. The onlookers around them turn pale at the boy's audacity, while Jin So-woon pretends to search his memory for the name. So-woon remarks with a sarcastic grin that he remembers hearing that manor's name in a smelly public restroom. Everyone in the delegation is horrified by the heavy, bizarre insult delivered by the young Taya sect disciple. Overwhelmed with hatred, Gu Yongsa grips the hilt of his sword, ready to strike the boy down right then and there. The young man from the manor charges forward, attacking with blind fury over his family's honor, being severely offended on the spot. Suddenly, the sound of firm footsteps approaches, and an authoritative female voice cuts through the impending fight. Gu Yongsa freezes his blade inches from So-woon's face, who does not even flinch before the sharp sword. The crowd whispers in awe as they recognize the famous Iron Sword warrior walking in their direction. The young woman walks over with elegance, asking if everyone came to her grandfather's party just to pick fights. It is Song Moran, granddaughter of the Iron Sword sect leader, who scolds the violence taking place. Jin So-woon observes Song Moran, remembering the recent history of the Iron Sword sect, which was established not long ago. Both sects were based in Afai, and since two sons cannot share the same sky, rivalry became inevitable for everyone. The rival wanted the peak spot that belonged to the Taya sect, and tension between them had been building in the past. In his previous life, So-woon fought the rival leader's grandson for insulting his sect and accepted a duel knowing he would lose. To stop that unfair fight, his father ended up kneeling and begging for forgiveness in front of hundreds of people. So-woon looks at Song Moran, realizing that past events seem to inevitably repeat themselves in the present. The young woman from the Iron Sword sect asks, in a calm voice, the reason for all that commotion at the pavilion entrance. Gu Youngsa keeps pointing his sword at So-woon while trying to make excuses to the birthday host's granddaughter. Blushing as he looks at the pretty girl, the attacker tries to pin all the blame for the mess on Jin So-woon. He claims that the sect does not allow holding spots in line and demands that the protagonist's group move to the back. Polite, Song Moran bows and offers a sincere apology to the protagonist's group for the rudeness at the entrance. To make amends, she personally offers to escort the Tae group inside the party as guests. Guided by Song Moran, the entire delegation walks together toward the main hall of the event. Trying to hit on her, Jai Chi-leong showers the girl with flattering compliments as they walk side by side. Song Moran merely offers a polite smile and mentions that the leaders are already waiting for all the guests. So-woon reflects that in the original timeline, the girl never approached them, and he wonders if he caused this change. The group arrives at the entrance of the majestic banquet hall, and Hong is stunned by the colossal size of the structure. So-woon notices that the hall is much larger than in the past, feeling suspicious about the motives behind this invitation. The hall is packed with guests drinking and laughing loudly as the birthday party goes on in full swing. In the center of the room, Old Master Song Chin Wall stands out, laughing and drinking generously with those present. Beside him stands Song Ju Tak, the young sect leader, who observes the guests with a rather calculating gaze. The wealthy man from Jiriowang rushes over to the masters and bows with deep flattery, greeting them for the great event. Song Ju Tak returns the greeting with a friendly laugh and warmly welcomes young Jai Chi-leong with great enthusiasm. The young leader mocks that the only reason he did not make Chi-leong his disciple was because of the Taya sect status. Kang Chaeseok and Jin Taezen grit their teeth in silence as they hear the open insults directed at their beloved sect. Song Moran interrupts the awkward conversation and officially introduces the Tai sect delegation to the leaders. Song Ju Tak shoots a cold, disdainful glare toward the Taya group, sizing up their presence at the venue. Out of respect, the Tai masters bow and cordially introduce themselves before the banquet leadership. Looking into Jin Taezen's eyes, the rival leader recalls that 20 years have passed since an old incident. Jin So-woon grows curious and thoughtful upon hearing the rival leader mention that mysterious event from 20 years ago. Song Ju Tak asks about Leader Hong's health and requests to identify the young disciples accompanying the group. He analyzes the boys with contempt, arrogantly claiming that their learning capacity is terrible. The young leader openly scoffs at Tai's instruction, suggesting the focus should solely be on training Chi-leong. Song Moran quietly observes the conversation, listening to the continuous jabs thrown at the Tai sect. The man laughs with scorn, claiming no one would want the boy to turn into a third-rate warrior. Jin So-woon suddenly steps in and drops a sharp comment that makes the young leader spin around in surprise. The boy openly claims that every word out of that man's mouth is a truly unbearable annoyance. Song Ju Tak loses his temper in rage and shouts indignantly, asking what on earth the boy meant by that. Jin So-woon pretends to apologize, saying he thought it to himself, but the words accidentally slipped out. He firmly points out the rival's lack of respect in belittling the Tai sect and its leaders for no reason at all. The young man mocks him, saying anyone would be irritated by such behavior, and offers a fake, over-the-top apology. Song Moran holds back a laugh at the impressive nerve of the young man confronting her father without fear. At the back of the hall, the patriarch of the Iron Sword sect narrows his eyes, paying close attention to the boy's attitude. The young leader trembles with pure rage, being publicly humiliated in the middle of his own family's banquet. With a taunting look, Jin So-woon holds his hands together and asks if his rival will accept his apology. Blinded by hatred, Song Ju Tak squeezes the teacup in his hand so hard that the ceramic vessel starts to crack. Losing his composure, he raises the teapot, roaring in fury as he prepares to attack the young man right there. A servant rushes in frantically, shouting that the Murim Alliance strategist has just arrived. The announcement freezes the attack and forces the leaders to drop the argument to go receive the important visitor. All the guests get excited and rush toward the entrance to pay their respects to the Alliance envoy. The hall empties out quickly as representatives from various factions hurry out at the same time. Jai Cheoliung runs frantically to keep up with his father, while Jin So-woon and Hong watch the comical rush. The Iron Sword Patriarch shouts orders to bring out all the valuable gifts prepared for the occasion. Furious that his moment was interrupted, Song-ju turns away while So-woon dismissively shrugs one shoulder. Hong asks if they shouldn't follow along, but So-woon prefers to take advantage of the empty hall to grab a great seat. Suddenly, a hand grabs So-woon's collar from behind with extreme force and a stern tone of warning. Kang Chaeseok gives the boy a harsh scolding, asking what got into him to disrespect the rival leader like that. So-woon explains he noticed the master was about to draw his sword and that the provoker wanted that exact excuse. So-woon asks the master not to act recklessly, as the enemy was clearly trying to force a new pretext. Then, the young man takes the opportunity to openly ask what actually happened 20 years ago that was so serious. Jin Taizan lowers his head with a sad, heavy expression upon hearing the direct question from his own son. Kang Chaeseok hesitates as well, showing that talking about the group's past brings deep pain to the sect. Song Morin appears with a gentle smile, inviting them to talk comfortably inside the guest quarters. Instantly changing the subject, Kang Chaeseok accepts the offer in relief and excitedly runs to grab a good table in the hall. They are taken to a spectacular VIP table featuring a prime view of a large lotus pond. The table is served with exquisite dishes and exotic delicacies that the Thai sect could normally never afford. Finding the royal treatment odd, Jin So-woon asks why Song Moran is sitting with them instead of at the main event. The girl laughs softly and explains that her sect's sexist rules exclude women from important matters anyway. In the Iron Sword sect, her brother Song Mo Hyeon is viewed as the primary heir to the warrior clan. Meanwhile, Song Moran is known as the charming she-wolf, possessing great talent despite internal discrimination. Her brother grew up monopolizing the sect's resources for being the chosen one to inherit the leadership. On the other hand, Song Moran is a natural prodigy who started late but earned a direct spot in the academy. While devouring a chicken leg, So-woon remarks that receiving this VIP treatment might be beneficial for Tae. The girl chuckles gracefully and playfully asks if the young man happens to be interested in her to be asking so much. So-woon replies that he was merely bringing up common rumors, and Song Morin formally apologizes for her father's offenses. She suggests her father acted out because of Cheoliung's broken contract and hints that he should return to the sect. Pausing his meal, Jin So-woon stares at the young woman and says he has a very important question for her. He asks straight to the point what the Iron Sword's true intention was in inviting a weak rival sect. Song Moran wears an enigmatic smile, keeping the real plans behind the banquet shrouded in mystery. The girl responds by asking with pure irony if banquets are not meant precisely for gathering a crowd. Jin So-woon counters by coldly reminding her that throughout history, many of the greatest assassinations occurred at parties. Song Morin narrows her eyes in silence, realizing that this young man cannot be fooled by simple talk. Laughing charmingly, she praises Jin So-woon and mentions that she must take her leave due to her other duties. With an elegant and graceful gesture, the young woman bids farewell to everyone at the table, leaving the martial artists thoughtful. As the girl walks away, the Thai group remains at the table, quietly watching the movement around the hall. So-woon tries to talk to his younger sister, but Hong turns her head away angrily, still sulking about the whole situation. Outside, voices praise Song Moran's extraordinary beauty. While the youth party continues in full swing, several young martial artists from other sects surround the girl, trying to convince her to join their table. They vie for the attention of the rival clan's Harris, competing over who will get to sit beside the beauty. A servant girl arrives running out of breath, calling out the girl's name and interrupting the harassment from those young men. The servant looks for her in the courtyard without noticing that Song Moran stealthily climbed onto the roof to escape everyone. Relaxing on the roof, the young woman lets out a relieved sigh, complaining that there is not a single decent man at that party. She thinks that the only interesting young man was Jin So-woon for not bowing his head to anyone, not even her father. Intrigued, the girl asks herself whether that young man is simply fearless or completely insane. Suddenly, something catches her attention on the ground floor, making her look down at the movement with curiosity. From the roof, she spots the Taya leader's daughter walking toward the hallway, accompanied by Jai Cheoliang. She remembers that the young martial artists planned a separate gathering for the new generation during that night. Finding it odd to see only those two heading to the meeting, the girl wonders why Jin So-woon did not accompany them. Realizing that new trouble is about to unfold, Song Moran smiles excitedly, anticipating the fun. Meanwhile, in the guesthouse room, someone knocks on the door, and the person inside asks who is there. Jin So-woon opens the room door and is completely surprised to come face to face with the unexpected visitor in the hallway. It is Song Moran, and the boy asks in astonishment what brings the rival sect's Harris to his quarters. The young woman invites him to join the banquet of young talents, organized to strengthen the bonds between the sects. So-woon thanks her but declines the invitation, claiming that everyone from his sect is exhausted from the day's event. The girl lets out a mischievous chuckle upon hearing the excuse and mentions that she saw something different moments ago in the courtyard. She reveals that she just saw young Hong walking alone toward that gathering of martial artists. The young man recalls the dread of the past, when that very same gathering ended in the duel that ruined his family's honor. He realizes in anguish that this was exactly the tragedy he had been trying to prevent all day long. Left with no choice, he concludes that he will have to go to the event to avoid leaving Hong vulnerable to a potential trap. Upon hearing So-woon's provocative words, the girl Song Moran shifts her expression, becoming visibly affected. The girl stops her steps in the hallway and turns to glare at the young disciple with a piercing gaze. Indignant, she asks if he is suggesting that the noble Iron Sword sect would lure guests in just to betray them. So-woon sarcastically asks if she is truly naive, or if she simply acts better than she fights in the sword sect. Reminded of the sexist rules she mentioned earlier, So-woon begins to suspect that the girl really does not know about the plans. Song Moran admits that her sect considers Tai a nuisance, but she swears they hold honor above all else. With eyes full of resolve, the young woman guarantees that the Iron Sword would never stoop so low as to act like bandits. Hearing the girl's naive oath, So-woon flashes a mocking smile, knowing exactly what they are capable of. He proposes a wager, stating that her brother will start trouble to humiliate the Tai sect at the event. So-woon walks past her, warning with absolute certainty that in the end, his sect would be turned into a joke. Disappointed, Song Moran says she's mistaken about the young man, calling him a deluded fool before turning her back. So-woon walks ahead, muttering to himself that from the bottom of his heart, he hopes he is wrong this time. The scene shifts to the illuminated pavilion over the water, where the gathering of young talents from the sects is taking place. Inside the hall, one of the martial artists stands up indignantly and begins provoking the guests in a loud tone. He questions how an insignificant sect like Tai remains among the peaks while the Iron Sword was left out. The provoker scoffs at Jae-ryung's contract and points at Hong-sa, Ryan, who listens to everything with her head down at the table. The other young men, laughing mockingly, notice the girl's silence and claim she has no arguments to reply with. Hong fights back tears while enduring the public humiliation, and the malicious latter echoing through the room. The attacker raises his glass in victory, calling upon everyone to demand an official position from the Tai sect. He holds his glass toward Hong, demanding that she respond to the provocations in front of all the guests. The provoker smiles maliciously, saying that mud puddles need to be cleaned up, and asks if Tae agrees. Hong is left speechless, stammering without knowing how to respond under the suffocating pressure in the hall. Trembling with shame, the young woman clutches her clothes, unable to defend herself against the young man's continuous insults. Jin So-woon appears, sitting down at the adjacent table, and calmly declares that he agrees with the provoker's opinion. Song-moran watches the scene from afar, noticing the unexpected arrival of the young man who caused trouble earlier. A martial artist tries to offer the girl a seat, but she coldly refuses, saying she only came as an escort. Gu Yangzo is shocked to see Jin So-woon there, while the protagonist asks the servants for a clean table to drink. Gu Yangsa gets annoyed, asking if the young man did not hear the speech, and Jin So-woon sarcastically mocks the phrase older brother. So-woon jabs at his rival, asking how someone who stays silent while watching their sect get insulted can be a senior brother. Frightened, Hong tries to stop the argument, asking why the boy came to that place all by himself. With a mocking expression, So-woon says he came because he was worried the girl would cause more trouble at the event. Next, the young man scans the hall, taking note of how the leaders of the wealthy sects were reacting to everything. He notices two elite martial artists at a reserved table who did not even bother to look toward the fight. One of them is Namding San, the divine dragon and oldest son of the continent's prestigious Namding family. The other is Song Mo Hyan, grandson of the Iron Sword Patriarch and direct rival of the Taya sect. The two exchange tense glances across the hall, recognizing that the true hostility was about to begin. Gu Yangza turns around angrily, accusing Jin So-woon of intentionally interrupting his conversation with Hong. The villain smiles with disdain, asking if the boy intends to answer and take the place of the weak in the debate. Jin So-woon watches him without any change in expression, maintaining his composure in the face of direct provocations. He grabs a chicken leg from the plate and firmly repeats that he completely agrees with the criticism made. The attacker is surprised when So-woon brings up the metaphor about how a pond needs fresh water to be cleaned. Chewing his food with relish, the young boy takes a dramatic pause before completing his point. He states that fresh water only cleans the pond if it is clean itself, using the Xingju sect as an example of filth. So-woon asks why that wealthy sect has not yet joined the peaks despite all the financial power it possesses. He drops a bombshell by bringing up the bloody Cheongjik Manor incident that took place 60 years ago in history. Gu Yangsa's face turns completely pale with dread upon hearing that rotten secret of his clan exposed. He recalls that in the past, the brothers of that sect killed one another in a bloody struggle for the throne of leadership. So-woon ironically admits that they are strong, but exposes the faction's disgraceful past of familial betrayal. He asks how anyone could trust their back in the war against the demonic cult to traitors who kill their own brothers. He slams his cup on the table with force, bringing absolute silence over all the martial artists in the hall. So-woon concludes with a laugh that he would never fight alongside people of such questionable and despicable character in battle. The youths from the other sects are left in shock, unable to believe that someone exposed that historical crime in public. Blinded by hatred, Gu Yangsa charges forward and grabs the boy's collar, roaring with extreme violence in the courtyard. He loses control and screams, asking how he dares bring up the dark history of the Xingju sect before everyone. A powerful voice echoes through the hall, interrupting the assault and freezing the furious young man's reaction on the spot. The heir Song Mo Hyan walks down the stairs intimidatingly, making the villain stammer in fear of his wrath. The leader of the party walks with slow steps, accusing Gu Yangsa of disrespecting the guests of his own sect. He declares that insulting guests in his home is the exact same as ignoring his clan's prestige. Song Moran tries to defend the truth, saying the other sect started the provocation, but her brother tells her to shut her mouth. Song Mo Hyan accuses Jin So-woon of deflecting the topic and ruining a constructive discussion among those present. Frightened by a potential massacre, Hong steps forward, apologizing to try to save the boy's life. Jin So-woon shifts at the table, ironically admitting that he seems to have ruined the pleasant gathering of the new generation. To everyone's surprise, the boy offers a respectful bow and takes the blame before Song Mo Hyan. Song Moran is completely shocked to see the fearless boy bow and calmly apologize. He apologizes to Gu Yangsa, stating that he went too far by touching upon his sect's painful past. So-woo mentions that they will leave so as not to cause any more trouble, asking everyone to enjoy the rest of the event. He calls Hong so they can take their leave, while the rival heir watches them depart with a dark glare. As they turn around to walk away, Song Mo Hyen orders them to halt immediately in a threatening tone. He declares that insulting guests in his residence damages the honor and reputation of the Iron Sword sect. In his capacity as the patriarch's grandson and principal disciple, he demands physical restitution before they leave the premises. Song Mo Hyen states that apologies are not enough and openly declares his intention to resolve the matter in combat. With a wicked laugh, the patriarch's grandson challenges Jin So-woon to a direct duel in front of everyone. Song Moran watches the scene in shock, realizing that it is now impossible to prevent the confrontation between the two. Instead of dread, Jin So-woon begins to chuckle softly, showing a grim satisfaction behind his mask. Laughing as he looks up, the boy realizes that history is unfolding exactly as it did before. With a calm and defiant gaze, the protagonist rejoices in knowing that his suspicions were correct. Song Moran casts her gaze downward in sadness, realizing that her brother's arrogance inevitably ruined everything. The scene cuts back to the room, where Jin Tae-sun furiously scolds his son for accepting the duel at the party. Hong steps in to defend the young man, telling her father that Jin So-woon's explanation makes complete sense. The boy tries to explain himself, but the young woman retorts that, regardless, he should have remained calm. Hong cries in anguish, remembering that the opponent uses a heavy sword and that he might end up dead in the fight. The girl sheds genuine tears, terrified of losing her companion over that hasty decision. Desperate at her tears, So-woon tries to calm her down, promising that he has a flawless plan to emerge victorious. Kang Chae-seok grows annoyed with So-woon's jokes, while the boy signals for silence, so as not to make the crying worse. Kang Chae-seok demands that Jin Tae-sun give his son a harsh scolding, but the master remains in absolute silence. So-woon takes responsibility and firmly asks the elders to trust in his ability this time. Gritting his teeth, the master senses the determination in the young man's eyes and goes quiet, unable to argue. Annoyed but left with no options, the master accepts the decision, while Jin Tae-sun remains downcast in the dark room. The young man observes his father's silent suffering, swearing in his heart that he will not let the shame repeat itself. Jin Tae-sun carries the anguish of protecting both the sect and his son, while preparing for the worst the next day. The day of the duel finally arrives. At the main training courtyard of the Iron Sword sect, Hong comes sprinting down the hallways, shouting So-woon's name with a look of desperation. Frightened, the girl brings urgent and grave news about the boy's father, leaving him apprehensive. The boy's face freezes in complete shock upon realizing what his father was doing at that very instant. Without hesitating for a second, he dashes desperately down the hallway toward the combat arena. The protagonist falls into desperation upon seeing that the worst nightmare he had tried to avoid has actually come to pass. In the arena, a crowd watches while commenting that the offender's father is kneeling to beg for forgiveness. Jin Tae-sun lies prostrate on the ground before the leaders of the rival sect, humiliating himself to save his son's future. The patriarchs of the Iron Sword watch the scene from above with a cruel, satisfied smile of superiority. The leader apologizes to the Alliance strategist for the spectacle, and the guest tells him to proceed without issue. Chujso Mayung analyzes the scene, recognizing the political intent behind that public humiliation. The strategist understands that the Iron Sword wants to force the Tae sect to surrender its official spot at all costs. Jin Tae-sun strikes his head hard against the stone floor, bleeding as he begs for the life of his beloved son. The rival patriarch demands to hear in detail what terrible crime was committed by the boy before making a decision. Blood trickles down Jin Tae-sun's forehead as he confesses that his son uttered insults against the rival. Laughing, the old man scoffs that the son is just like the father, remembering that 20 years ago, he did the exact same thing. Jin So-woon appears at the arena entrance, falls into pure desperation as he witnesses his father's humiliation on the ground. With slow steps and a gaze heavy with anguish, the young man approaches the prostrate figure in the center of the courtyard. So-woon tells his father to stand up, while Jin Tae-sun says that no father can bear to see his son get hurt. Shocked, So-woon replies that no child can accept seeing their own father humiliate himself like that on their account. The boy firmly asks his father to step back and leave everything in his hands from that moment onward. The young man clenches his fist so hard that his veins bulge, demonstrating the uncontrollable rage in his chest. Song-mo Hyun steps down, mocking the paternal love and saying that seeing the man bang his head almost makes him cry. With a look of contempt, the villain warns that he will forgive the offense if So-woon kneels on the ground beside his father. In response to the insult, Jin So-woon slides his hand down and slowly, purposefully draws his sword blade. The young man warns his father that his sword has already been drawn and that there is now no turning back from the battle. He asserts that his father's apologies have lost all meaning and demands that the man step away from the fighting yard. So-woon turns to face his opponent, declaring that he came there solely to prove his true worth. Hong and Kang Chaseok watch in terror as the young man warns that he does not use empty words when fighting. The boy takes a firm step forward into the arena, ready to face the rival heir in a final duel. Jin So-woon looks at his kneeling father, assuring him that he will not disappoint him and asking him to just watch. Song-mo Hyun makes an arrogant gesture with his hand for them to bring his giant sword to the arena. Wielding the massive blade, the villain scoffs, saying he wants to see what a disciple of the 100 Peaks is capable of. Jin So-woon analyzes his rival, knowing he was raised with all the resources and luxuries the sect had to offer. The heavy sword of the rival clan is the worst nightmare for the traditional light and swift style of the Taya sect. Determined to dominate the fight through speed, Jin So-woon opens with the first basic form of his sect. The opponent is surprised to see the unbelievable speed with which the boy advances toward him in the courtyard. He blocks the swift attack, using the width of his greatsword, curbing the protagonist's strike. The villain scoffs, calling the boy an insignificant rat for attempting to attack with such a light style. With a brutal movement, he delivers a heavy blow, pushing Jin So-woon back with the impact of the steel. The swing of the heavy sword creates a gust of wind, so strong that it makes the ground tremble beneath their feet. The strike hits the arena stone, shattering the ground into pieces and kicking up a massive cloud of dust into the air. Huge. So Myung analyzes the fight, thinking that the Tae sect is weak for being pushed back right at the first clash. Amidst the dust, the rival here smiles mockingly, asking if that weak attack was all he had. Jin So-woon takes a deep breath in the middle of the dust, evaluating the impact of the opponent's brute force on his arms. The villain mocks him, saying nothing good could be expected from the Tae sect and that the boy is nothing. Stomping firmly on the ground, Jin So-woon tells the attacker to shut his mouth and cut the arrogant speeches. He advances once more, exchanging high-speed blows against the heavy blade of the patriarch's grandson. The swords lock in a direct clash of strength where the villain smiles, believing he will crush the young man. Jin So-woon acknowledges that his rival's physical power is impressive, but refuses to yield a single inch of ground. The attacker leans in and whispers into So-woon's ear, reminding him that another, just like him, existed before. He relates that in the past, another Taya warrior challenged his father, not knowing his place in the alliance. He reveals that that man lost the fight, and that he was Jin Taeson, the boy's own father in his youth. The villain shares that his father paid for the offense by being burned with the flat side of a red, hot sword. The father's body was entirely covered in burn scars across his chest, back, and stomach. The villain smiles wickedly, about to openly reveal the name of that tortured warrior from the past. Jin Taeson's name is disclosed, revealing the cruel physical humiliation he suffered 20 years ago. Jin So-woon falls into absolute shock upon understanding the origin of the marks on his own father's body. Looking back, the boy stares at his father in the crowd, understanding the reason for all his silent suffering. Jin Taeson lowers his eyes in silence, unable to face his son, after the shameful secret comes to light. Taking advantage of the boy's distraction, the villain delivers a brutal kick right to Jin So-woon's chest in the arena. The impact hurls Jin So-woon far back, causing him to skid violently across the courtyard stones. Seeing the devastating blow, Kang Chaseok and Hong scream in despair, fearing for the young warrior's life. Staggering, Jin So-woon tries to push himself back up while the villain mocks, saying that fight makes no sense. The attacker laughs out loud, asserting that father and son are identical for swallowing insults without any sense. In the audience, the nobles laugh mockingly, saying the Tai sect is pathetic and the duel is an unfunny joke. On the grandstand, the old patriarch smiles cruelly, satisfied to see the Tai sect humiliated in public. Everyone in the audience believed that the history of humiliation and defeat for the Tai sect would repeat itself right there. However, behind the smoke, Jin So-woon cracks a dark, focused smile, ready to turn the tables. Jin So-woon advances at high speed, once again employing the basic first form of his sect's technique. The villain attacks with force, but Jin So-woon dodges with surgical precision, ducking under the blade. The patriarch's grandson widens his eyes, overcome with surprise as he sees his heavy strike swing into empty air. With his blue eyes glowing intensely, So-woon decides it is time to unleash his true power. Using only the tip of his light sword, he elegantly deflects the crushing blow from his rival's giant weapon. The villain roars in shock, failing to comprehend how that weak boy managed to deflect such a devastating strike. Memories of thousands of ancient manuals come to life in the boy's mind, guiding his movements in the fight. Falling into desperation, the hare attacks wildly, asking what kind of trick the young man is pulling. So-woon moves through the arena, focused on growing stronger and stronger to protect everyone he loves. The very same basic technique now carries overwhelming force, propelled by 30 years of pure energy. The strike slash a song Mo, high in skin, leaving the villain in disbelief at his rival's destructive power. Jin So-woon observes his injured rival on the ground, maintaining a firm stance after delivering the victorious blow. Song Mo high-on collapses onto his own sword, bleeding from the mouth as he feels the damage from the devastating strike. Smiling with confidence, So-woon rests his sword on his shoulder and mocks him, asking if that is all his rival has to offer. Lacking the strength to stay standing, the hare falls backward into the arena under the shocked gazes of the audience. Slumped on the ground, his eyes widen in disbelief that he was defeated by an ordinary disciple. On the dais, the patriarch of the Iron Sword sect watches his grandson's humiliation with a dark and furious glare. The villain struggles to rise, leaning on his weapon against the ground, while Jin So-woon looks down upon him. Desperate not to lose his honor, the hare launches a blind attack. Screaming with all his remaining strength, Jin So-woon dodges the blow with utmost ease, displaying the abyssal gap in skill between the two. The rival's massive sword lodges into the stone ground, sealing the definitive end of that arena combat. The aggressor's eyes widen as he senses that something is completely wrong with the flow of his own power. His internal energy mysteriously begins to falter, preventing him from utilizing any martial techniques. The villain trembles, lacking even the strength to hold his sword, falling into panic over his body's sudden paralysis. Jin So-woon mocks him coldly, stating that his rival's internal energy cultivation is pitiful and inadequate. Falling to his knees on the ground, the hare roars in outrage as he sees his energy bizarrely blocked. He refuses to accept defeat, remembering that he consumed the finest, most precious elixirs in his entire sect. The young man panics in shock as he realizes he was surpassed in internal energy by a theoretically weaker rival. The protagonist looks down on him with absolute dominance, ready to conclude the spectacle of his victory. The villain puts the pieces together and recalls that his power vanished right after So-woon touched his shoulders. He realizes that during that brief touch in the hall, the boy used the artifact to absorb a portion of his energy. Terrified to the extreme, the defeated hare screams, accusing Jin So-woon of practicing forbidden sorcery. He roars, calling So-woon a lunatic for using an art banned by the Murim Alliance in the middle of a public duel. The villain accuses the young man of being a demonic cult spy, demanding that the guards arrest him immediately. From the dais, the patriarch of the Iron Sword sect watches his grandson's despair in the courtyard as the crowd falls silent. The grandson crawls across the ground, pleading for support from his powerful grandfather to condemn the Tei boy. He insists desperately, saying he distinctly felt his energy being drained through sorcery. Jin So-woon listens to the grave accusations with composure, while the audience begins to whisper. The villain shouts the name of the forbidden art, accusing So-woon of learning the demonic heaven, absorbing art. The name of the taboo technique sends a shockwave through the crowd, who begin to murmur in fear and apprehension. Patriarch Songqin Wool steps down from his throne and walks toward his crawling grandson, under everyone's watchful eyes. Jujso Mayong reflects that accusations of sorcery and forbidden arts are matters of extreme gravity in the martial world. He ponders that using forbidden arts brings severe punishment, but making false accusations is punished even more harshly. The strategist notices that the rival patriarch is cornered by his grandson's words and decides to wait for the right moment. Jin So-woon stands in the center of the arena, facing the leadership of the rival sect without showing any hesitation. So-woon delivers a speech, recalling how he swallowed insults and apologized, yet his rival insisted on fighting out of vanity. He openly exposes that the Iron Sword sect's intention was to prove superiority in order to seize a spot among the peaks. The young man declares that he accepted the duel to prove the true worth of Tae, using only his swordsmanship. In the audience, Song Moran feels ashamed of her brother's pathetic despair in fabricating false accusations. Jin So-woon concludes loudly and clearly that a sect without honor like the Iron Sword sect does not deserve to stand among the peaks. Seeing the boy's flawless rhetoric, Jujso Mayong smiles with satisfaction and decides to observe the scene unfold. Public opinion shifts, and the guests begin to criticize the shameless behavior of the Iron Sword sect at the event. The villain trembles in despair upon realizing that his accusations ended up tarnishing his own family's reputation. In a final act of desperation, Song Mo Hyun slams his head against the ground before his grandfather, swearing he is telling the truth. He argues that he has never lost to anyone his age and could only have been defeated through sorcery. He insists he felt his energy being drained and stakes his own name and honor as guarantee of his claim. The young man accepts being severely punished if he is lying, swearing on his life that the enemy used forbidden arts. Patriarch Songqin Wall lets out a long sigh, realizing the gravity and weight of the oath taken by his grandson. The old patriarch raises his hand and officially halts the combat, imposing his absolute authority over the venue. So-woon questions the termination of the duel, and the patriarch replies that he must inspect the boy's body. Facing the young man's refusal, the Iron Sword leader furiously asks if he is calling his grandson a liar. Song Mo Hyun smiles wickedly, asking how Jin So-woon intends to bear the consequences if he is proven innocent. The patriarch roars furiously, ordering the young man to shut his mouth, claiming that the more he stalls, the more suspicious he appears. The old man warns that he will inspect So-woon's body on the spot and make the entire Tae sect pay for this. Seeing the imminent threat, Jin So-woon turns to his father in the crowd and shouts out for him. The boy takes a solemn stance, swearing he is willing to offer his own life for the honor of the sect. Jin Taezen stands in absolute shock upon realizing the extreme gravity of the radical action taken by his son. So-woon gives a direct order to the hall master, demanding that no one touch his body until the judges arrive. The young man thrusts his blade into the arena floor, proudly declaring his name and his allegiance to the Tae sect. He declares he is prepared to die to protect the honor trampled upon by the schemes of the rival sect. With breathtaking courage, the young man formally challenges the patriarch of the Iron Sword sect to a duel. The entire crowd freezes in astonishment at the unprecedented audacity displayed by the young disciple. Blinded by rage, the old patriarch roars, asking how an insolent boy dares to challenge him in public. In response, Jin So-woon raises his voice and commands the patriarch to shut his mouth and not raise his tone before him. The impact of the aura in the arena causes surrounding practitioners to stagger, suffocated by the intensity of the moment. Sensing the severity of the situation, the two masters of the Tae sect draw their swords to protect the boy. So-woon is surprised to see his father and the hall master step forward as a living shield in front of him. Kang Chaeseok scolds the young man, telling him to step back and stop acting as if he were responsible for everything. Jin Taezen stares at his son, declaring that no father in this world would ever accept letting his own child die before him. The enraged patriarch leaps forward to attack, swearing to destroy the very existence of the Tae sect forever. Suddenly, a serene and authoritative voice commands the battle to cease immediately in the courtyard. It is Jujso Mayong, the alliance strategist, who intervenes in the conflict with his overwhelming aura. With merely the pressure of his energy, he paralyzes the Patriarch's charge and the defense of the Tai Masters. With a cold gaze, the strategist orders everyone involved to sheath their weapons and end the hostility. The crowd watches in awe as the supreme authority of the Mirim Alliance representative dominates the arena. Next, he turns to the young man and demands that Jin So-woon also sheath his sword and stand down. Reflected in the metal of his blade, Jin So-woon stares at the strategist and replies that he cannot sheath his sword. The rival patriarch fumes in outrage at the boy's disrespect toward the envoy of the Mirim Alliance. Calm and curious, Jujso Mayong ignores the shouting and asks for the reason behind the young man's refusal. So-woon recalls that the rival sect used the duel to humiliate them and attempted to falsely frame him with sorcery. The boy confronts the strategist, asking what he did and how he can trust someone who watched everything unfold in silence. Jujso Mayong walks down the stairs, finding the boy's attitude insolent, yet admitting his impressive courage. He openly admits that he delayed intervening because he was amused by how the situation was unfolding. Approaching the boy, the strategist asks with a penetrating gaze what he truly desires at this moment, pointing his sword toward the rival patriarch. Jin So-woon takes a pause filled with tension and accumulated hatred. With eyes burning in fury, the young man declares loudly and clearly that he wants the head of the Iron Sword sect's leader. Jujso Mayong gives a subtle smile, finding the boy's demand a maneuver of extreme political audacity. The strategist deduces So-woon's master plan, using his own death to destroy the reputation of his rival. He is deeply impressed by the boy's brilliance in turning certain defeat into the enemy's ruin. Jujso Mayong turns to the patriarch and asks if he has the courage to wager his sect's name plague. Taken by surprise, the old man stammers, asking why he should wager his sect's name on a simple inspection. The frightened patriarch tries to back down, saying that if responsibilities must be taken, it should be settled by the sword. Jujso Mayong strokes his beard in thought and agrees to accept the old master's proposal. The strategist surprises everyone by proposing to put up as a wager the sacred weapon inherited by the rival leaders. Jin So-woon is surprised by the bold demand made by the strategist, which elevated the stakes to another level. It was the legendary nine-fold sword, a sacred treasure passed down through generations in the Iron Sword sect. Desperate, the patriarch attempts to backtrack, claiming he could never wager his clan's sacred relic. The strategist dismantles the argument, saying that if his grandson speaks the truth, inspecting So-woon's danchin should be simple. He warns that if it is all a setup, the Iron Sword sect would be using the alliance to commit a malicious act. The strategist's gaze turns dark as he openly accuses the rival clan of acting with wickedness and dishonesty. Patriarch Song-chin falls silent in shock, realizing he has fallen into a political trap with no way out. Cornered by the strategist, the old patriarch relents and agrees to let the inspection be conducted on the boy. Jujso Mayong touches the patriarch's shoulder and asks if Jin So-woon also agrees to the imposed terms. With a calm and serene expression, Jin So-woon prepares to undergo the evaluation without showing fear. The strategist extends his hand, advising the young man to relax and not resist the entry of his energy. He places his fingers on the boy's pulse, sending a surge of blue energy to examine his danchin. An intense glow illuminates the area, revealing the meticulous probe being conducted before the anxious crowd. In everyone's minds echoes the hair's accusation that the young man learned the demonic absorbing art. The forbidden art absorbs the strength of others, creating a chaotic blend of different energies within the body. Had the boy truly used such a technique, his cultivation center would be thoroughly tainted and impure. However, the dragon bracelet perfectly purified all the absorbed energy, merging it with Tai's power. The strategist's eyes widen as he discovers that the young man's internal energy is flawless and perfectly pure. The entire banquet crowd waits in absolute silence for the final verdict of the Mirim Alliance envoy. Jujso Mayong releases the young man's arm and solemnly declares that he has never practiced the forbidden art. The patriarch of the Iron Sword sect stands in static shock as his grandson's accusation is publicly disproved. Song Mo, Hyan panics in despair, screaming that he distinctly felt his energy being drained during the fight. The old man refuses to accept it, claiming it is impossible for a Taya disciple to defeat his grandson without cheating. Blinded by wounded pride, the patriarch lunges to grab Sowoon and perform his own check on his strength. He grips the boy's hand, sending a violent surge of aggressive energy to ravage the young man's body. The old man's disproportionate force makes Jin Sowoon groan in pain as his meridians are squeezed. Jin Taizhen and Kang Chiak grow furious, shouting to ask what on earth the patriarch thinks he is doing. The violent impact of the old man's energy makes the young man vomit blood, suffering internal injuries in the arena. Song Moran panics and screams for her grandfather to stop before he ends up killing the boy right there. Alarmed by the damage caused, the patriarch releases the young man, who collapses unconscious and bloody onto the stones. The masters rush in desperation to tend to the unconscious Sowoon, while the crowd erupts in outrage. Strategist Jujso Mayung glares at the patriarch with pure fury, asking him what he has done. The old man trembles upon realizing the boy truly was innocent, and that he committed an unjustifiable act. Fallen and bleeding, Jin Sowoon opens his mouth with difficulty to murmur the name of the rival sect leader. Blood drips onto the stone floor, while the boy gathers his last strength to demand retribution. Supported by his father and hall master, the young man demands that the Iron Sword Patriarch kneel and ask for forgiveness. The demand echoes through the arena, leaving the grandson and all the guests in absolute shock at the gathering. Song Moran covers her mouth in shock, seeing the tables completely turn against her family's honor. Extending his blood-covered hand, Jin Sowoon claims the price for the wicked actions committed by that clan. With his face bathed in blood, the boy demands the collection of the moral debt accumulated over the years. The young man collapses exhausted, supported by the strategist after delivering the ultimate political blow to his rival. His father and hall master hold the unconscious boy, calling out his name in desperation. A deathly silence covers the venue, while the alliance leadership stares at the defeated patriarch. Jujso Mayong glares at the old man with a terrifying gaze that promises devastating consequences for the sect. The strategist coldly demands that the patriarch honor the wager and hand over his clan's sacred relic. The scene shifts to the following day, showing a peaceful pavilion with birds singing in the trees. Jin Sowoon slowly wakes up in the infirmary bed, his vision blurred and his body still quite sore. Opening his eyes, the young man blinks repeatedly, attempting to regain consciousness and understand where he is. He bolts upright in bed, shouting the rival leader's name with memories of the confrontation rushing back. A hand rests on a book upon the adjacent table, while the strategist's voice softly echoes in the room. Jujso Mayong sits beside the bed, asking with a smile if the boy's theater act has finally come to an end. The scene reveals the darkness of a filthy cell, with rats crawling across the cold stone floor of the prison. Song Chin Wol visits his grandson's cell, where Song Mo Hyan continues shouting insanely about sorcery. Clinging to the iron bars, the grandson begs his grandfather to believe him and not leave him to rot in prison. Disappointed, the old patriarch turns his back, stating that the young man has yet to regain his sanity. He laments the priceless treasure lost due to his grandson's foolishness and refuses to listen to his wailing. The patriarch calls his grandson a fool and orders that he not receive even a drop of water until he reflects on his mistakes. The grandson loses his mind in despair within the damp cell, roaring his grandfather's name as he is left behind in the dark. Back in the quiet infirmary room, Jujso Mayong asks if the young man has finished acting before everyone. Jin Sowoon blinks in surprise from his bed, realizing that the strategist read every single one of his moves with precision. The young man puts on a blank face and whistles, pretending to be clueless in front of the elder's statement. Sowoon reflects that he really couldn't fool a genius of the strategist's caliber with a weak performance. Jujso Mayong is considered the greatest living genius in the alliance and wastes no time on knave lies. If in martial might there was Yongso, leading warriors with an undefeated sword in war, in the realm of strategy ruled Jujso Mayong, a man whose premature death altered the course of the future war. So-woon asks in shock if he knew everything from the beginning, and the elder confirms while laughing at his naivety. Shuj-so, Myong explains that he noticed how the boy deliberately provoked the rival patriarch in the middle of the arena. He notes that So-woon used him as a shield to avoid a direct confrontation with an unbeatable opponent. The strategist reveals he realized the blood spit up by the boy came from biting the inside of his own cheek. Setting his brush on the table calmly, the old man prepares to ask the young man the crucial question. Juj-so, Myong stares at So-woon and asks from when exactly he planned this brilliant maneuver. Silence falls over the sunlit room, while Jin So-woon ponders the answer he will give to the strategist. Cornered by the elder's sharp insight, So-woon hesitates in silence as Juj-so. Myung sips his tea. Taking a sip, the strategist mocks him, asking if the boy lost his voice after having his tricks exposed. Jin So-woon places his bare feet on the wooden floor and begins to speak in a serious, focused tone. He points to the sacred relic, the nine-fold sword, resting on the table, asking if that was his reward. The boy instantly changes demeanor and excitedly runs over with eyes gleaming with greed to examine the treasure. Juj-so, Myung is left bewildered with a question mark on his face. Failing to understand the young man's sudden shift, So-woon holds the giant sword, laughing with joy, and ponders how much he could sell it for on the market. The strategist becomes annoyed, calling the boy insolent for wanting to sell his rival's historical relic. Returning to seriousness, So-woon explains he simply prepared himself to crush the rival sect's arrogance at the banquet. Juj-so, Myung listens in analytical silence, understanding the deep motivation behind the plan. He questions how So-woon predicted that Song Mo-hyeon would mention forbidden arts in the heat of combat. So-woon warns that answering further would be a loss, and that he already repaid the favor by answering one question. Laughing, the elder reminds him that men pay fortunes to speak with him, and asks if So-woon wants nothing. So-woon confirms with a laugh and offers a farewell bow, ready to leave with his new sacred sword. Juj-so, Myung remains stunned in silence while the boy keeps his clever smile and sarcastic bow, unable to contain his curiosity. The strategist places a treasure chest on the table to purchase the answer. Seeing the advance payment, Jin So-woon flashes a satisfied smile and turns back toward the strategist. He explains that spoiled prodigies like his rival have perfectly predictable personality traits. He merely exploited his arrogance and the fact that the villain would never accept losing to someone weaker. So-woon mentally admits that he did, in fact, use the bracelet to absorb a bit of his rival's energy. Fortunately, the bracelet purified everything so thoroughly that not even Juj-so, Myung noticed during the pulse check. The boy opens the small wooden chest, eager to inspect the payment received for the information. Upon opening the chest, So-woon panics in shock to find 3 iron heart pills from the rival sect inside. So-woon bursts out laughing with joy and thanks the strategist from the bottom of his heart for providing such valuable elixirs. Juj-so, Myung asks why he didn't win the fight easily, given that he had total confidence in the outcome. So-woon answers that a simple victory would be viewed as mere luck, and that he needed to crush the threat permanently. The strategist questions what would have happened had he not been at the banquet to clear the boy during the exam. So-woon responds coldly that even if he had been killed, the examination of his corpse would have proven his complete innocence. The young man demonstrates that he was prepared to risk his own life to defend the honor of his sect. Juj-so, Myung stands astonished, asking if he truly risked his life for something like the honor of a group. Jin So-woon clenches his fist with full force, reaffirming the vital importance of his family in the martial world. Looking into the strategist's eyes, the young man shows that his commitment to the Tai sect is unwavering. Two great strategists stare at each other in deep silence, understanding the magnitude of each other's ideals. So-woon reflects on the name of Juj-so, Myung, and the honored tradition that his prestigious family carries. So-woon stares at the strategist and asks if he truly believes that only the Tai sect lacks such honor. Strategist Juj-so, Myung observes the young man with a look filled with profound curiosity and admiration. The old man bursts into laughter and cheerfully declares that he knew staying by the boy's side would be immensely entertaining. Jin So-woon looks at the strategist, finding his latter bizarre and regarding the man as a true monster to reward him for the entertainment. The old man hands him a special government pass plaque. Jin So-woon takes the object, quite surprised, and begins to read the inscription marked on the official pass. His eyes widen in shock upon realizing the priceless importance of that plaque in his hands. It is a direct recommendation to enter the Muram Academy without needing to take the grueling entrance exam. With that second plaque in hand, the Taya sect gains the right to send another disciple to the academy. He holds the pass tightly, realizing he has opened a radiant future for his younger companions. Moved, So-woon listens as the strategist invites him to work in his official office after graduating. The young man freezes instantly with a stunned look on his face upon hearing the name of the famous department where the old man works. So-woon recalls that the Mantong office is known for abusive working hours and endless toil. The strategist excitedly announces that he will create a custom position tailored just for him, leaving the young man terrified. Juj-so, Myung leaps out the window to depart while So-woon asks why he did not simply use the door. Laughing aloud, the old man bids farewell, inviting the young man to come work by his side soon. Jin So-woon falls into despair, shouting that he will never accept becoming a work slave in that place. As the old man's voice fades into the night, So-woon panics, fearing for his professional future. The next day, the Iron Sword sect bitter tastes defeat and the loss of its precious sacred treasure. Song Moran walks beneath the wisteria trees, observing the Tai delegation depart from the residence. The girl reflects in silence on the disgrace brought upon her clan during yesterday's unjust inspection. She recalls her grandfather's blind fury, accusing innocent people of sorcery in the middle of the banquet hall. She remembers the shocking scene of Jin So-woon covered in blood, shouting for retribution in the arena. She feels a tightness in her chest, remembering her past assurance that her sect would never act like bandits. Consumed by remorse, Song Moran remains head down in the garden, unsure how to face the young man. By surprise, Jin So-woon appears, whispering in the girl's ear and causing her to let out a comically terrified scream. Startled, she turns around to find the boy standing there calmly, holding his bag on his back. Completely embarrassed, Song Moran joins her hands, stammering and unable to form a clear sentence. The young woman bows her head sincerely, pouring her heart out about how reckless her past actions were. The boy observes her, intrigued, and asks what she means by calling herself reckless at that moment. She begins to explain about yesterday's duel, attempting to express the genuine guilt she carries. With a voice choked with emotion, she asks why he had to go so far as to risk his own life. Echoing the same question asked by the strategist, the young woman seeks to understand the reason behind such madness. Jin So-woon asks if she believes Tai should have obediently accepted the rival's humiliations. The girl turns pale and freezes upon realizing her words were interpreted as disdain for his sect. Desperate, she tries to correct herself immediately, waving her hands and assuring him she meant nothing of the sort. She swallows hard with a tight throat, searching for the right way to ask the boy for forgiveness. The heiress of the Iron Sword sect displays a genuine vulnerability she had never shown to anyone before. Beneath the purple flowers of the tree, Song Moran performs a deep bow of apology before Jin So-woon. So-woon accepts the gesture and gently asks the girl to lift her head and stop blaming herself. She looks up in surprise, staring at the young man with teary eyes at the benevolence demonstrated. So-woon says he accepts her apology, knowing that demanding an apology from the old patriarch would be asking too much. The girl promises to try to convince her grandfather to apologize, but So-woon cuts her off, saying it is unnecessary. With a genuine smile, he states that there is no sense in continuing to fuel an endless cycle of hatred. Song Moran's eyes sparkle upon hearing such surprising wisdom and maturity coming from the young man. He simply asks that, if she truly regrets what happened, she take the responsibility to change her sect from within. Walking toward his friends, he reflects that although the sects are rivals, their essence remains the same. With a radiant smile, he concludes by remembering that, in the end, both belong to the same martial world. Song more in size and fascination, watching the young man walk away beneath a rain of purple petals falling from the trees. The two share a final poetic and striking glance under the flowering tree, concluding an unforgettable encounter. The final image shows the contrast of defeated rivals trapped in the past, while So-woon's journey moves forward. Song more silently laments that the inability to offer a sincere apology led to this tragic outcome. The girl wipes the tears from her face, deeply moved and remorseful over her clan's past actions. Jin So-woon grows anxious seeing the girl cry and tries to soothe her, saying that tears do not suit warriors. With a resolute gaze, Song Moran presents an elegant black box as her sincere token of apology. She hopes this gift will help both sects build a peaceful coexistence in the future. Upon opening the container, Jin So-woon is left jaw-dropped at the priceless content stored inside. It is the Steel Protection Pill, a treasure reserved exclusively for direct heirs of the rival clan. With a radiant smile on her face, Song Moran bids farewell, hoping for a reunion in better days ahead. Jin So-woon returns the smile and bows politely, sealing a new chapter of mutual respect between them. The story advances a few days, showing the tranquil entrance gate of the Taya sect beneath the bright sun. Back at his sect, Jin So-woon is surprised to be greeted with joyous celebrations at the gates. The children and his companions run excitedly, celebrating the victorious return of their senior brother. Everyone swarms the young man, eager to see the famous nine-fold sword won at the banquet. Trying to catch his breath, So-woon pushes the little ones aside as he notices Lee Yoon-ho standing right behind him. Lee Yoon-ho scratches the back of his neck, looking awkward and embarrassed as he attempts to speak seriously to the protagonist. So-woon teases him, asking if he wants a piggyback ride, and Yoon-ho confesses that he used to feel ashamed of belonging to the sect. He shares that he suffered when people mocked Tae's martial arts as weak and incomplete, but now, thanks to So-woon's feat, he takes pride in pounding his chest and declaring himself a Tae disciple. Gripping the hilt of his sword, Yoon-ho swears he will train twice as hard to honor the name of his martial school. Blushing, he promises to become a great warrior, just like his role model and elder brother, Jin So-woon. The masters and Hong observe the scene from a distance, smiling with pride at the maturity of the disciples. With an affectionate gesture, Jin So-woon places his hand on Yoon-ho's shoulder, encouraging the boy's growth. Smiling in camaraderie, So-woon bumps fists with him, saying he can hardly wait to see his progress. Supreme Leader Hong Munji appears radiant, confessing he could not sleep out of sheer joy over the news. All the masters gather in the courtyard, praising the group while the children celebrate around the protagonist. The leader recalls that they endured humiliations from their rival for over a century due to being considered weak. But So-woon changed everything, achieving a historic feat that no adult in the sect was ever able to accomplish. Hong Mungi confesses his immense gratitude, yet admits feeling ashamed for having left the burden on the boy's shoulders. Wiping away tears, the leader suggests organizing a grand celebratory banquet for the sect's victory. Jin Tae-sun instantly refuses, reminding them that they have no money and that the children would starve for 6 months. The two engage in a comical argument, with Jin Tae-sun maintaining that honor does not fill the boys' stomachs. The leader pulls a pouch of coins from his chest, promising to fund the celebration with his own saved money. Touched by the leader's gesture, all the other masters also produce their coin pouches to contribute to the feast. Jin Tae-sun gathers all the money pouches with a greedy and satisfied look at the collected funds. With the children clinging to him, So-woon asks if they are truly going to throw the victory banquet. His father feigns total deafness, claiming he heard nothing while hiding the collected money from the other masters. Jin Tae-sun runs off happily, planning to use the funds to buy meat for the disciples in every meal. Watching the comical scene, So-woon recalls the dark times of suffering his father had to endure in the past. The boy smiles in relief, seeing his father acting cheerful and carefree once again in the sect's courtyard. The clear blue sky over the Taya sect marks a new era of peace and hope for all its members. Of the 3 pills received, 2 2 remain with Sowoon and Hong, while the third will serve as a reward for top training performance. The story shifts to the Merchant Guild, where employees count coins, outraged by their master's reckless decisions. Sowoon's father suffers a massive headache while balancing the sect's books. After the leader's negotiations with the guild, Jai Yanseok offered 3 entire inns in exchange for just a single iron heart pill for his son. However, Hong Munji declined, recalling how Chia Liang sat drinking and watching as the Tai sect was attacked. The leader proudly declared that the sect's dignity was defended with blood and carries no market price. Jin Taezon continues to lament, stating that 3 inns would generate enough money to buy 5 pills a year. With a leaf resting in his mouth, Sowoon thinks that despite all the complaints, his father is happier than anyone with the sect. Sowoon announces that he is setting off to earn money on his own, tired of listening to his father's financial grievances. Jin Taezon shouts, asking how he plans to do that, and Sowoon bids farewell with a laugh, asking his father to have more faith in him. Hearing his father yell to ask where he is heading, Sowoon calmly turns around and answers without hesitation. With a sly grin and the leaf still in his mouth, the boy declares that he is going wherever the money is. The scene shifts to the bustling Wong clan village, filled with circulating merchants and locals. A traveler wearing a straw hat watches in awe at the grandeur of the main mansion's entrance. The Wong family estate is one of the world's 3 largest merchant clans, renowned for its vast riches. The townspeople comment that the clan's only daughter is an incomparable beauty admired by everyone in town. Curiously, however, hardly anyone in town has ever actually seen the young Harris's face. Inside the mansion, heavy doors seal off a room that is completely isolated and shrouded in a frigid mist. A hand grips the door ring and pulls the entrance open, allowing the cold air to billow into the hallway. Wang Jumzhen, the clan head, enters with a warm smile, announcing to his beloved daughter that he has just returned. Upon the table, dishes piled with rare fruits are entirely covered by a fine layer of ice. Even the toys and ornaments in the chamber remain frozen due to the room's intense chill. In the center of the frigid room, young Wang Soso sits coughing weakly, greeting her dear father. Wang Soso offers a delicate and fragile smile, happy to see her father again after another day isolated in that room. Her father affectionately strokes her head as she talks about the new embroidery patterns she learned today. She presents the fabric and mentions her plan to embroider a handsome outfit as a gift for her father in the coming days. Wang Jumzhen listens deeply moved, and with a heavy heart, trying to conceal his sorrow over his daughter's condition. The narrative recalls the day physicians instructed the father to keep the room filled with frigid energy. The physician explained that the cold served only to delay the illness, as there was no known cure for it. The girl suffers from a devastating fever that burns her body from within, causing excruciating pain. The tragic diagnosis decreed that the girl would unfortunately be unable to live past the age of 20. Her father asks what she desires for her birthday, and the girl replies that she has already received everything she could ever want. Shyly, the young woman confesses that her grandest dream would be to stroll around and explore the town marketplace. Trapped in a sealed room due to her condition, her sole wish is to simply gaze upon the outside world. The girl feels it is a selfish desire, while her father feels profound pain over being unable to fulfill her wish. Wang Jumzhen smiles and reveals that he secretly commissioned a special carriage to take her outside. The father explains that the vehicle will feature a refrigerated system to maintain the ideal temperature for her health. Radiant with happiness, the girl throws her arms around her father, overcome by indescribable emotion in the room, her eyes shining with joy. She enthusiastically thanks him for finally making her dream come true. Seeing his daughter's happiness, Wang Jumzhen is deeply moved to his core by the affectionate hug he receives. He thinks that he would spend mountains of gold without a second thought if it could guarantee a cure for his daughter. The sun sets over the lavish Wang Manor, bringing the darkness of night to the frozen estate courtyard. Night falls, and the tranquility of the residence is suddenly shattered by a frightening and unexpected event. Wang Jumzhen enters the room only to find it empty, holding a ransom letter left atop the frigid blanket. The ransom note reveals that criminals have kidnapped the girl, demanding demanding an absurd fortune in exchange. The father flies into an absolute rage, roaring in hatred against the cowards who dared touch his only daughter. He summons all the clan's forces and promises an astronomical reward to whoever rescues Wang Soso alive. Search posters featuring the young woman's portrait are posted across every village and town in the entire region. In the village square, Jin So-woon closely examines the wanted notice, analyzing the provided information. A clever grin spreads across the boy's face as he realizes the golden opportunity to earn money has just arisen. Without wasting time, the young man rushes through the forest at high speed toward the location of the abduction. Moving swiftly through the trees, he mentally reviews all the crime reports from his past life. He remembers that in the past, the support received from the merchant guild concealed shady motives and illicit transactions. Once the wealthy guilds got what they wanted, they discarded smaller sects without the slightest consideration. To secure genuine support, Jin So-woon knows he must save the Wang clan's daughter to earn their eternal gratitude. The ransom reward will be large enough to solve the Taya sect's financial deficit once and for all. Smiling with resolve, So-woon declares that the time has come for him to play the role of the damsel's hero savior. Landing near an isolated hideout in the woods, he finally pinpoints the kidnapper's location, drawing from his future memories. So-woon had filtered all regional criminal reports involving young girls. He recalls a terrifying report that mentioned a decapitated corpse at the very site where he stands now. Arriving at the scene, the young man positions himself on the wooden roof of the old, abandoned shack. He carefully lifts a roof tile to observe the movements of the criminals inside the house. Spotting Wang Soso alive, he celebrates not having arrived too late, but notices something wrong with the girl. The young woman lies on the ground with her body burning with fever, leaving even her kidnappers in shock. So-woon grows confused from above, as his past memories contained no record of her illness. Seeing the hostage on the brink of death, the kidnapper draws his sword to eliminate all traces. As the assassin raises his blade to kill her, So-woon crashes through the roof and invades the room. With a swift and decisive surprise attack, he strikes down the criminal before the man can even react mid-air. The other masked men turn in alarm, drawing their blades against the unexpected intruder. Within seconds, So-woon wipes out the entire gang in the room, demonstrating absolute dominance in combat. Wang Soso continues groaning in pain on the floor, completely surrendered to the overwhelming fever consuming her body. Struggling to open her eyes, she glimpses the silhouette of the boy approaching to rescue her. Severing the ropes binding her, So-woon notices the extreme heat radiating from every pore of the young woman's skin. Placing his hand on her forehead, the boy immediately concludes that this is no ordinary flu. Seeing the girl regain consciousness, So-woon speaks calmly, asking if she can hear him. Frightened, she asks who he is, and the boy politely introduces himself as a member of the Taya sect. He fabricates an excuse, claiming he was walking at night and heard strange noises coming from the shack. Delivering a noble speech, So-woon poses as a hero of justice, who could not ignore an injustice right before his eyes. Grateful, Wang Soso gives her name and promises that her father will reward her savior's generosity. So-woon offers to take her to a physician, but the young woman desperately declines the assistance. She reveals that she must live in a frigid environment, otherwise, her meridians will burn up from within. So-woon reflects, intrigued, trying to identify the true ailment behind those fatal symptoms. He closes his eyes and begins searching through the medical manuals he studied in his mind in the past. In the library of his memories, he references terms like chronic fever and internal burning in the meridians. Information streams through his mind at rapid speed, connecting accounts of rare historical cases. His mental search advances quickly until locating the exact medical compendium entry. Recalling his studies in the Alliance, he focuses on the exact work that treated this specific condition. He accesses the complete compendium of diseases, written by a legendary master of ancient medicine in the book. The The text precisely describes a rare condition, where the body itself generates overwhelming internal heat. The anomaly produces agonizing pain, constant fever, and an extreme buildup of thermal energy within the individual. Known as the solar physique, this congenital condition can burn through the meridians if left untreated. So-woon realizes this is not a common disease, but rather a special physical constitution. Since it is not an illness, no conventional medicine in the world is capable of curing the girl's body. The boy fixes his gaze on the patient, understanding the true nature of the solar physique consuming her. For this reason, all the physicians on the continent failed to find an effective cure for her condition. So-woon laments the girl's misfortune upon realizing that her solar physique crisis flared up right during her captivity. He recalls that in his past life, the girl died and her father spent a fortune without ever finding her body. Panicked upon seeing the hostage die, the kidnappers dismembered her body and hid it, unable to claim the ransom. So-woon thinks carefully and identifies a revolutionary alternative to transform that constitution. He remembers a legendary technique described in the texts that could serve as her definitive salvation. The young man approaches Wong Soso with a serious look, drawing the bedridden girl's attention on the wooden floor. He states directly that he knows an ancient method capable of completely altering her body's constitution. Wong Soso stares at him in absolute shock, unable to believe that a stranger claims to possess the cure for her agony. The two talk in the frigid room, lit by the cold mist amidst the silence of that night. With trembling hands, the young woman begs the boy to reveal this miraculous method to save her life. She assures him she will do anything in the world if he can free her from that unbearable suffering. So-woon steps back awkwardly, warning that altering one's constitution is serious business, and asks what she would do if he were a charlatan. The girl replies that he saved her, and that she can distinguish who wish to help her from those who intend harm. Touched by her trust, So-woon agrees and explains that he read about an identical case in the Alliance archives. The story spoke of Suzu, a jade master born with the lunar physique, who mastered the frost arts with brilliance. Ancient texts revealed that because of this icy constitution, the female warrior was unable to have children. To solve the issue, she sought out the divine doctor of life and death, begging him to alter her body. The legendary doctor discovered a way to reverse the extreme yin and yang constitutions within the body. So-woon deduces that by reversing Suzu's procedure, he will be able to cure Wong Soso's solar physique. He warns that she will need to take daily pills and learn the Taya heart method. With no turning back, the girl replies that she has no intention of becoming a warrior and reveals what she truly wants in life. Her dream is to live an ordinary life, spend time with family, hug her loved ones, and have her own children someday. All she wants is to grow old while enjoying the simple moments that normal people take for granted. So-woon reflects that despite being born rich, she could never enjoy anything because of her condition. Moved by the young girl's humble wish, So-woon makes his decision and prepares to begin the procedure. However, before starting, he senses the sudden approach of more enemy reinforcements outside. To protect her during the upcoming fight, So-woon quickly taps her neck, knocking her unconscious. He catches her unconscious body and softly apologizes before preparing to face the attackers. He reflects that if the Wong clan found out who was really behind the kidnapping, it would cause serious trouble. Outside, the shadows of the new intruders surround the old hut in the darkness of the forest night. The leader of the masked men orders an immediate raid. After noticing the carrier pigeon did not return with news, the leader demands absolute secrecy, but So-woon's mocking voice suddenly cuts in, teasing the group's cowardice. So-woon appears on the roof with sword in hand and ridicules the disgraceful conduct of the influential Namgong clan members. The masked intruders freeze in fear as they realize the boy knows their true identity. Jumping down from the roof, So-woon introduces himself with disdain, saying he only came to ruin their perfect plan. The villainous leader orders every witness eliminated and frantically demands to know who sent this mysterious warrior. So-woon scoffs, saying he already knows everything, and revealing that they are men working for the Blue Sky Merchant Guild. He points out that they are secret henchmen of Master Namgang Sangwon, leaving the masked leader completely shocked. So-woon exposes the business envy of the rival clan, stating they used the kidnapping to try to destabilize the Wong clan. The villain gathers his energy in rage, realizing he cannot let So-woon leave that forest alive under any circumstances. Without further talk, the mercenaries charge together at brutal speed, attacking the boy without hesitation. Drawing their swords, they openly unleash the prestigious limitless sword technique of the Namgung clan. So-woon simply smirks upon seeing the famous swordsmanship being used against him in battle. With sharp reflexes, he blocks and dodges the simultaneous sword strikes in the hut's courtyard in a quick movement. So-woon throws dirt into the eyes of one attacker, disorienting the mercenary. The villains shout in outrage, calling the boy a coward for resorting to cheap tricks in the middle of a sword fight. So-woon takes advantage of the opening to strike his opponent, giving him no chance to recover. He slashes his opponent and sarcastically remarks how funny it is to call him a coward when they attack one person as a group. The second enraged mercenary executes the second form of Namgang swordsmanship, trying to strike So-woon down once and for all. So-woon lightly dodges and mockingly asks with surprise if the henchman actually knew the second form. As he fights effortlessly, the young man begins pointing out and correcting the mistakes in his rival's technique. The mercenary flies into a rage, asking if he is making fun of his style while trembling in frustration at being unable to land a hit. The man falls into total panic, unable to understand how an ordinary boy can master and predict his every move. With a single devastating blow, So-woon completely humiliates and overcomes the prestigious clan's legendary swordsmanship. The leader steps forward, channeling energy into his blade and telling the boy to prepare himself. He takes his stance to release the secret assassination technique of the Namgang clan's sword art. The villain lunges forward at high speed, while So-woon's blue eye shines with absolute calculation in the courtyard. He projects multiple sword trails through the air, shouting that an ordinary kid could never predict this. The blade's blue energy cuts through the darkness from dozens of angles, filling the forest clearing. However, So-woon pierces through the attack and strikes the leader with multiple blows, ruthlessly silencing him. The leader of the kidnappers falls backward, losing a large amount of blood as So-woon finishes his sword swing. All the Namgang clan intruders lie, defeated on the ground as the protagonist sheathes his sword in the courtyard. The last villain, struggling on the ground, stammers in disbelief at how a single boy destroyed their group alone. He is horrified to see his clan's legendary sword style dismantled and neutralized without effort. So-woon scoffs, asking if he thought that swordsmanship was invincible, adding that in this current era, this was only natural. So-woon reflects that the mercenary did not even know the sword breaker form, which was created specifically to counter the Namgung style. The night darkness covers the isolated hut as the violent storm finally clears from the courtyard. Jin So-woon opens the wooden door of the shelter, checking the serene horizon to ensure there is no more danger. With the path clear, the young man grips his sword hilt and turns around to begin Wong So-so's treatment. Kneeling beside the unconscious girl, So-woon announces the start of the procedure to save her life. Silence wraps around the surroundings while inside the wooden cabin, the healing ritual is carefully performed. Time passes, and sunlight once again brightens the outside of the house, marking the completion of days of treatment. Now recovered, Wong So-so fidgets nervously with her clothes and gathers the courage to make a special request to her savior. Blushing, the girl shyly asks if she can affectionately call him older brother from now on. Jin So-woon offers a gentle smile and accepts her sweet request, preparing to wrap up his final instructions. The young man celebrates the initial success of the treatment, guiding Wong So-so to maintain her cultivation exercise routine. A few days pass in the old cabin, with the girl regaining her vitality with every new day of meditation. Wong So-so sits in the lotus position, focusing on the purified ice energy flowing perfectly through her body. So-woon praises her dedication, stating that she has great talent and that only her body was too fragile. Throughout the treatment, So-woon had the girl take a bitter pill every day to help regulate her internal system. He also patiently teaches her the exact recipe for the pills, so she can make them herself in the future. On top of that, So-woon teaches her the Taya breathing technique to drive out any remaining toxins from her body. Pleased with the results, So-woon concludes that by keeping up this pace, Wong So-so will be able to live a long and healthy life. Seeing that she has learned to manipulate her own energy, So-woon confirms that her training in the cabin is complete. With a bright smile, the boy tells her there is nothing left to teach and asks if they can head home. Excited, the young girl agrees, and they take their first steps out of the old hut together toward the village. Halfway there, Wong So-so stops abruptly, showing hesitation as she remembers something important. Jin So-woon turns around, puzzled, and asks why she stopped walking on the road. Embarrassed, she holds the strap of her robe and shyly asks permission to make one last request. With her face red from shyness, the girl asks if she can affectionately call him older brother, starting today. So-woon listens to her sincere request in silence, touched by the affection and trust shown by the young girl. The girl waits for an answer with her heart beating fast and her head lowered out of shyness. Laughing happily, So-woon accepts, and So-so becomes overjoyed, asking him to call her by her nickname as well. With a warm smile, the young man agrees, calling her So-so and holding out his hand so they can walk together. He makes a motion to pat her head, but freezes mid-air as he remembers a funny detail. So-woon remembers that Hong hated when he messed with her hair, so he apologizes, saying it is an old habit. Wong So-so blushes and whispers shyly that in her case, she does not mind his affection at all. Looking up at the clear sky, So-woon calls the girl, reminding her that her father must be frantically waiting for her. The two walk side by side down a beautiful path lined with blooming trees as pink petals fall around them. Delighted, So-so watches the falling blossoms and whispers emotionally about experiencing spring for the very first time. She confides that because she lived sealed away in a frozen room, she only knew spring flowers through stories. Enthusiastic, she shares that she also wants to go hiking in the mountains during autumn, and So-woon tells her she needs to train. Scenery of rivers and waterfalls shows the natural wonders of the outside world that the girl can now explore. So-so proudly states that she is a Taya disciple and will train hard so she can enjoy the summer in the future. Finally, the two arrive at the bustling Wang clan village, where residents crowd the streets. So-so excitedly points to the mansion's large sign, recognizing her father's name printed at the entrance. The girl grabs So-woon's hand and eagerly pulls him along, eager to reunite with her father and introduce her hero. She happily assures him that her father will host a massive feast and grant him a huge reward. She celebrates, saying that leaders from all the branch families will come and there will be plenty of food and non-stop music. However, with gentle movements, Jin So-woon softly lets go of her hand and stops running. So-woon smiles and says he will say goodbye right here, as he will not be entering the Wang estate to join the feast. The scene shifts to the Namgong clan inn, where a heated argument fills the room. Strategist Judge So Myung drinks his tea in silence, ignoring the annoyance of the young warrior in front of him. Namgung-san raises his voice, demanding the promised special admission pass be handed over to his brother. He argues that his brother possesses peerless talent among the new generation and demands an answer from the strategist. The strategist calmly replies that if he is truly that talented, he will pass the regular exam without difficulty. Namgung-san clenches his fist in anger and asks if the old man knows the terrible reputation of the regular exam. Tens of thousands of young people from across the entire continent register for the competition in hopes of passing. However, only 500 manage to pass that brutal test, which ruthlessly eliminates the vast majority. That merciless and bloody test became globally known throughout the martial world as the Hell exam. The strategist explains that he gave the pass to someone more talented, but Namgung-san refuses to accept this. Outraged, the young warrior shouts that the chief strategist must have made a regrettable mistake. So Myung sets his cup down precisely on the table as his aura cools dramatically. He stares at the young man and asks if he really thinks he owes him explanations or justifications for his orders. Pressured by the old man's overwhelming authority, Namgung-san swallows his pride and apologizes immediately. Juj-so, Myung pours tea, calmly commenting that his family's political situation is growing worse. He sarcastically remarks how ridiculous it is to see a direct descendant of the powerful Nam clan fearing an exam. The Nang clan strictly divides power, with direct heirs maintaining the family's martial traditions. Meanwhile, the secondary branch manages the finances and the commercial empire outside the gates. The secondary branch created the Blue Sky Merchant Guild, accumulating massive wealth and political influence. With the guild's expansion, the secondary branch grew strong enough to challenge the direct heirs. Even knowing about the crimes committed by the guild, the direct descendants cannot easily intervene. The young man asks if the strategist has a solution, revealing that the clan leader is seeking a way out. Juj-so, Myung's eyes widen upon learning that the patriarch is developing the sword breaker technique. The old man slams his fist on the table in outrage, warning that creating a counter-attack against their own clan's swordsmanship is insane. He reminds him that this sword technique also belongs to the main family, and using it will destroy everyone. The spilled tea on the wood symbolizes the self-destructive internal conflict brewing between the branches. Namgung-san grips his knee, pleading that he needs the past to save the main family's future. He leans forward and begs to know who received the direct entry spot. The strategist remains silent, thinking of the young Jin So-woon, who just took the recommendation. Back in the village, Wong So-so is heartbroken upon hearing So-woon say their journey together ends right here. The girl tries to reason with him, organizing arguments for why they should enter her father's mansion together. So-woon explains that her disappearance caused chaos, and arriving with her would raise suspicion against him. The girl desperately clutches his clothes, promising that nothing bad will happen and begging him not to go. With tears in her eyes, the girl begs for the chance to repay him for saving her life. So-woon gently touches Sozo's head and reminds her that she herself claimed to be a Taya disciple. He smiles sweetly, saying the only reward he needed was gaining a new sect sister. As he turns around, he reinforces his medical advice, asking her never to forget to take her daily medicine. Waving happily, the young man wishes her a long life full of health and happiness in the future. The villagers in the street look at the girl standing there, recognizing the lost heiress of the Wong clan. People in the market are shocked and begin shouting in surprise upon seeing the girl alive at the entrance. As the crowd announces her return, So-so watches her savior's silhouette fade into the distance. Jin So-woon walks peacefully with his hands behind his head, satisfied with having saved an innocent life. The scene returns to the Namgung clan, where the internal struggle for power between the branches continues to rage. Namgung-san insists on knowing who the strategist gave the second direct spot for the academy to. Juj-so, Myung maintains the suspense without revealing that the token ended up in the hands of a simple Taya boy. Walking through the village, So-woon thinks that his original plan went wrong and he could not claim the direct reward. Unpredictable variables arose, such as her solar physique, which forced him to alter her physical constitution. In the worst-case scenario, the Wong clan might suspect that he orchestrated the kidnapping himself just to play the hero. That is why the best choice was to decline rewards and let her father seek him out of gratitude. He calmly reflects that if the master is an honorable man, he will come to thank the Taya sect in person. The young man makes a comical face of terror at the thought that the man might simply do nothing at all, telling himself that saving lives is reward enough. So-woon reaches the gate and sees Hong arguing with Namgung-san in the courtyard. Namgung-san asks for a moment of his time while Hong furiously demands that the man leave the sect immediately. Seeing the scene, So-woon smirks mockingly, teasing that his younger sister is already at the age to get a boyfriend. A hand suddenly appears and blocks Hong's path, startling the young girl in the sect courtyard. Namgung-san firmly states that he does not intend to leave and will stay the night if necessary. Observing from afar, Jin So-woon narrows his eyes, annoyed by the nerve of the Namgung clan heir. Taking a decisive step, So-woon steps in and tells the visitor to stop bothering her. The boy glares at his rival and warns that if the girl said no, he needs to stop pushing immediately. The Namgung warrior looks down at So-woon with disdain, assessing the young man in front of him. Namgung-san smiles and states that the boy arrived at the perfect time, recognizing his true identity. He addresses So-woon by name, revealing himself to be Namgung-san, the divine dragon and direct heir of the Namgung clan. Hong mentions that the man spent the entire day looking for him, while So-woon finds this unprecedented event in the timeline strange. So-woon considers if the visit is related to Wong Soso's rescue, but dismisses it since that is a matter for the secondary branch. He knows that someone from the main family would never move on behalf of the secondary branch's henchmen and interests. This visit did not happen in his past life and was caused by a change made in this new timeline. So-woon smiles upon realizing the only variable capable of causing that unexpected encounter. Namgung-san approaches the boy, saying he has an extremely important matter to discuss with him. The heir arrogantly demands that they prepare a guest room and tea so they can begin their conversation. Ignoring the snobbish request, So-woon simply turns around and says he is going to greet the sect leader first. Waving nonchalantly, the boy tells the noble to wait in the courtyard since they did not schedule an appointment. Hong stands speechless at her brother's nerve as he mocks the arrogance of the Namgung clan heir. Namgung-san scowls, consumed by anger at being treated with such contempt by an ordinary disciple. The scene shifts to the main hall of the Taya sect, where the masters converse peacefully. Jin Taizan and leader Hong choke and spill their tea upon seeing So-woon walk in and bow politely. Jin So-woon performs a flawless formal greeting, announcing his official return before the Tae leadership. His father jumps from his chair suspiciously and asks since when his son suddenly learned good manners. Hong Munji welcomes him warmly, and So-woon pulls up a chair to sit at the table with the sect elders. The leader calms Jin Taizan and greets the boy, saying it has been a while since they enjoyed tea together in peace. Pouring the tea, the leader asks the boy to share everything that happened during his time away from the sect. So-woon explains that he saved a kidnapped girl and had to teach her the Taya cultivation method to save her life. He apologizes for passing on the secret art without permission, predicting that the girl's father will arrive soon. Understanding, the leader forgives the boy, stating that martial arts exist precisely to save lives. Hong Munji and Jin Taizan smile proudly, declaring that they are extremely happy with his noble actions. Jin So-woon offers a genuine smile, seeing the approval and unconditional support of his Tai family. Jin Taizan asks about cash rewards, and So-woon teases his father, calling him greedy and self-serving. Finishing his tea, the boy stands up from the table, stating he has a pending matter to attend to in the sect. He politely takes his leave from the masters, revealing that he has an important visitor waiting for him outside. The leader praises the young man's maturity, while Jin Taizan tries to act modest with a silly grin on his face. Suddenly, both stop laughing and look at each other in shock, wondering who this mysterious guest could be. In the courtyard, the young disciples peek through the window in awe, admiring the famous divine dragon of the Namgung family. The children praise the hero's imposing presence, wishing they had been born into a clan as noble as his. They dream of learning Namgung swordsmanship, remembering that only top prodigies enter their academy. Jin So-woon enters the room, sits at the table, and drinks his tea, facing Namgung-san eye to eye without hesitation. Namgung-san grows inwardly irritated by the boy's relaxed posture, remembering that everyone usually bows to him. The noble reflects that mediocre individuals sometimes show their claws out of an inferiority complex before the strong. Getting straight to the point, Jin So-woon asks if his visit is because of the Muram Academy entry pass. Namgung-san freezes in absolute shock, surprised to see that the boy guessed the exact reason for his presence. Regaining his composure, the heir sets his cup on the table and states that the entry spot actually belongs to him. He claims he asked the strategist for the pass first and that the token ended up in So-woon's hands by pure chance. So-woon sarcastically asks why the old man would give the pass to someone else and tells him to go complain to the giver himself. Laughing, the boy boy exposes the truth, saying he came to pressure the Tai's sect because the strategist turned him down, with his pride trampled. Namgang-san admits that the boy has an annoying talent for getting under anyone's skin. So-woon waves playfully, saying that if he spoke the truth, his irritation is his own problem, as he stares down the powerful dragon. The reason the Namgang clan heir is so set on getting the entry pass is to give the spot to his younger sister, who will enter the academy this year. Attempting to negotiate, he places the 7-color treasure pearl on the table, claiming it is valuable enough to buy a massive estate. Watching that glow, So-woon notices his rival's desperation. Seeing that he cannot rely on the full support of a clan weakened by internal strife, Namgang-san states that he intended to resolve everything peacefully for Tai's sake. But this hypocritical attitude is precisely what irritates the boy. The way that guy cares so much about his own family, while despising others, causes deep disgust in the young protagonist's mind. He recalls his brutal past, where blood covered the ground, preferring to have his own chest torn open over watching someone whine about trivial nonsense. With a dark look full of contained anger, So-woon makes it clear that he will not tolerate the arrogant, self-pitying attitude of the noble in front of him. The visitor then tries to intimidate him, asking what the people of the martial world would say if they learned the Tai sect coveted something from the Namgang clan. Without showing a trace of fear, So-woon responds with a challenging smile and tells the arrogant heir to go ahead and try to tarnish their name. Angered by the boy's nerve, the noble asks if he is truly refusing and whether Taya can handle the weight of opposing the great Namgang clan. With a mocking smile, So-woon tells the noble to think carefully, reminding him that in the past, the Iron Sword sect also tried to stand against him. The boy openly mocks his rival, reminding him that the Iron Sword sect ended up completely humiliated and destroyed by his hands. The warrior's rage instantly explodes upon hearing the provocation, as he indignantly demands how the boy dares to compare his noble clan to a low-class sect. Namgang-san's expression turns completely dark and filled with intent to harm upon seeing the nerve of that mere disciple underestimating his clan. Tension fills the entire room as the two glare intensely at each other, about to make the peaceful atmosphere of the conversation completely shatter. Namgang-san tightly clenches his fist, deciding to settle the dispute once and for all, since the boy shows so much confidence in his words. The heir stands up furiously and challenges So-woon directly to a duel, where the academy entry pass will be put on the line in combat. Remaining calm and with a sharp gaze, So-woon accepts the fight without hesitation, showing that he had been expecting this proposal from the start. News of the duel spreads quickly throughout the entire courtyard, and the disciples' chatter begins to fill the surroundings of the Tai sect. Upon hearing the unbelievable news, the masters and elders of the sect are left completely speechless by the mess Jin So-woon has created. A crowd of curious disciples rushes toward the courtyard arena, wanting to witness the historic fight between the two young masters. Panic grips the elders while the excited students shout that So-woon will face the legendary divine dragon of the Namgang clan. The pink-haired girl is horrified, unable to comprehend what kind of madness her older brother is pulling by challenging a genius of that caliber. The master of the outer pavilion approaches, surprised by the commotion, and discovers that So-woon and the distinguished visitor made an agreement to fight. The young mentor explains that the tension between the two had been high since early on, but no one imagined the dispute would escalate into a duel so quickly. The sect's children begin to cheer passionately for So-woon, showing total trust and admiration for the prodigy boy's skills. One of the students tries to bring everyone back to reality, reminding them that the opponent is none other than the famous hero of the great Namgang clan. The little ones fire back right away, reminding him that So-woon already defeated senior brother Jai, and even the feared blood wolf of the Iron Sword sect. Swept up in contagious enthusiasm, the young disciples cheer with clenched fists, guaranteeing that So-woon will emerge victorious once again. While the elders watch silently in worry, the sect members shout loudly, asking So-woon to give his absolute best in the fight. Jin Taizan watches apprehensively, acknowledging his son's monstrous progress, but knowing that the Taiya sect's arts can hardly surpass the Namgang clan. The two warriors take their positions in the center of the arena, under everyone's watchful eyes, while the masters wonder what is going through So-woon's head. Before starting, So-woon demands confirmation of the wager, where he risks the entry spot while the noble puts up the pearl, the silk, and the clan's divine pill. Namgang-san accepts the conditions, promising to use only the blue sky sword art and limit his internal energy to just 30%. The heir draws his blade and warns that even while placing these restrictions on himself, he does not intend to hold back the power of his strikes in the duel. So-woon grips the hilt of his sword and signals for the fight to begin, maintaining a firm stance against his opponent's intimidating presence. The entire audience falls completely silent, and the onlookers swallow hard, gripped by suffocating suspense as the blades are about to cross. In a fast, imperceptible motion, one of them charges forward, tearing up the ground and opening the direct confrontation with an impressive burst of speed. The two swords collide with unbelievable force, generating sparks and a shockwave that echoes across the entire Tai sect courtyard upon impact. Namgang-san is instantly shocked as he feels the overwhelming pressure of the hit, realizing at that exact second that something is very wrong. The two trade swift attacks without yielding an inch, creating a storm of energy slashes that cuts through the air around the battlefield. So-woon takes advantage of the opening to mock him, noting with sarcasm the noble's look of shock at seeing that the fight is not going as planned. The pace of the fight turns wild, with blades colliding fiercely as sparks fly in every direction in a surreal display of mastery. Namgang-san is forced to block with extreme difficulty, wondering in his thoughts how that young boy can be so insanely strong. So-woon pivots his body and delivers a brutal sword strike, leaving the heir stunned by the heavy blade of someone who has not even reached adulthood. The noble withstands the impact with grit teeth, unable to understand where such heavy force behind the Taya boy's blade is coming from. Without giving his opponent time to breathe, So-woon seamlessly integrates a quick physical movement and charges full force to throw off his rival's defense. Namgang-san lets out a groan of pain as he is hit by the continuous pressure, getting pushed backward in the middle of the intense exchange. Regaining his stance, the noble acknowledges that the boy's achievements are impressive, but warns with wounded pride that his luck has run out. Executing the legendary blue sky sword technique, the noble charges in a swift attack, declaring that miracles do not happen twice. So-woon moves with impressive agility and manages to dodge the swift attack, keeping a sharp eye on his opponent. With total focus, the young master analyzes the trajectory of the enemy blade without showing any trace of fear or hesitation. The blue aura of Namgang-san's sword shines ominously in the air as the secret technique illuminates the entire battlefield. The blades clash once again with incredible force, creating a storm of sparks and shock waves throughout the sect courtyard. The brutal impact between the metals causes energy to spill over, sending extremely sharp gusts of wind flying in all directions. The two warriors continue trading fierce strikes in the center of the arena, showing an unbelievable equality of strength that impresses everyone. Outraged that his technique was blocked, the noble fumes, asking what trick a mere disciple of a minor sect used to stop him. So-woon counters right away, mockingly asking if his rival will use the same lame excuses the other opponents gave. The boy asks out loud if the heir is incapable of accepting that the Taya sect has warriors equal to his Namgang clan. Gripping his sword tightly, the visitor apologizes for offending the sect, but makes it clear he cannot accept the idea of being surpassed. Driven by wounded pride, the noble charges furiously, stating that the defeat of the Namgang clan is impossible in the martial world. The masters and disciples panic as they feel the noble's hostile intent attacking with overwhelming pressure in the middle of the courtyard. At the mention of hostile intent, the painful memories of his past life resurface with force in So-woon's mind. He remembers the dark, bloody days of the past, when he lay exhausted on the ground under heavy rain, surrounded by bodies and pain. Heavy footsteps echoed through the bloody mud as enemies advanced mercilessly to eliminate every survivor of the battle. As the young man fell helpless in the mud, the enemy raised a sharp sword, prepared to deal the final blow to his weakened body. That tragedy took place back when the Muram Alliance suffered consecutive, crushing defeats against the advances of the terrible demonic sect. His squad served merely as disposable human shields, made up of a group of outcasts and forgotten people. That tragic group, abandoned to their fate on the battlefield, was known to everyone as the Lesser Justice Squad. The boy's great secret is that in his past life, he was the captain tasked with leading that group of unfortunates. He lived through the true horror of direct combat, where every second decided who would stay alive and who would be torn apart by enemy blades. The pain, physical exhaustion, and constant despair were part of his daily routine as he watched his comrades fall dead around him. The blood of his allies spattered into the air as the captain fought like a madman to try to save the lives of those who trusted him. Shouting in agony and coughing up blood, he watched the massacre helplessly, unable to stop death from taking his closest friends. Kneeling beside the corpses in the middle of the storm, the young man carried the crushing guilt of having failed to protect his soldiers' lives. He knew perfectly well that if he did not raise his sword and fight with absolute fury, his comrades would be brutally executed on the ground. Even injured and at the limit of exhaustion, he faced his enemies with eyes red with rage, turning fear into combat strength. Holding the hilt of his blood-covered blade, he firmly refused to fall as long as a single breath of life remained in his chest. For that reason, he always put his own life on the line on the front lines, leading the charges in the middle of that hell of pain. The bloodlust, constant terror, and overwhelming fear he felt back then were forever engraved into the essence of his soul. Returning to the present, the hare brings down a devastating sword strike, seeking to end the duel and show the supremacy of his clan. The sharp blade passes millimeters from So-woon's face as the wind generated by the attack cuts through the air with terrifying danger. Using all the suffering of the past as fuel, the boy plants his foot firmly on the ground, breaking the dirt to launch himself into a counter-attack. He vows to himself that in this new life, history will not repeat itself, because now he has a real family and comrades. With a wild smile and blood trickling down his cheek, So-woon faces the enemy blade head on without hesitating for a single second. The two warriors cross paths in mid-air in a decisive clash, bringing their weapons together with the full power of their legendary martial arts. With his eyes filled with unwavering determination, So-woon reaffirms his promise to protect everyone he loves with his own hands. A colossal explosion of dust and debris erupts in the center of the arena, startling all the disciples who were watching the fight closely. The curtain of smoke slowly begins to clear, revealing the unbelievable outcome of that fierce confrontation between the two prodigies. The entire audience watches the scene in complete shock and silence, unable to believe the surreal conclusion of that wild battle. So-woon lies on his back on the destroyed floor of the arena, completely exhausted after the intense effort of trading blows in mid-air. Looking up at the open sky, the boy takes a deep breath to catch his wind, cracking a light smile on his dirty, bruised face. With the corner of his mouth bleeding, So-woon teases his rival, asking if the great hero had not promised to use only one sword technique. Namgung-san remains frozen in the stance of the Imperial Emperor Sword Technique, which is the supreme, guarded martial art of the Namgung clan. The onlookers realize that the noble broke his promise by using another technique, understanding that he was forced to resort to it to avoid defeat. Realizing the foolish mistake he made out of pure impulse, Namgung-san stands in total silence, unsure of how to react in front of everyone. The hare lets out a sigh and gives a resigned smile, inwardly acknowledging that he was outmatched by the Taiyi boy's cleverness and power. Admitting defeat, the hare openly declares that he lost the dispute and confirms he will hand over the entry pass to the winner, So-woon. The Taiyi sect disciples burst into total euphoria, wildly celebrating the historic victory over the representative of the Namgung clan. Instantly regaining his energy, So-woon gets up laughing and reminds the noble to hand over the silk, the vitality pill, and the precious pearl. Laughing with greed, So-woon celebrates seeing that he used the entry spot as bait to score priceless treasures like the noble's pill and rare silk. While thinking about how to sell the rewards, the boy is surprised by his rival's warning that the sparring match is not over yet. Becoming totally confused by that unexpected statement, So-woon stares at his opponent. Having no idea what he intends to do, Namgung-san points his sword and acknowledges that the protagonist is no ordinary man and that his earlier defeat was no mere coincidence. The noble states that the outcome of the wager has already been settled, but the conclusion of the sparring match is a completely separate matter. Displaying an arrogant smile, the rival tells the boy to take a combat stance, while So-woon stands in shock at such persistence. Without giving the boy time to process, the noble charges forward with a brutal sword attack that slashes through the air with extreme force. In the courtyard, So-woon leaps backward to dodge the strike, which destroys the ground, noticing the renewed rage in his opponent's movements. Dodging the onslaughts, the boy complains about his rival's meaningless stubbornness and offers to pretend he lost the fight just to make him stop. Rejecting the offer, the noble states with a serious gaze that he needs no favors and that true victories are earned only through skill. Launching another fierce attack, he declares that victory must be taken by one's own power, while So-woon struggles to block the strike. Blocking the impact with difficulty, the protagonist feels that his rival's sword has changed, becoming much heavier than before. He realizes that just as he once fought desperately for his comrades in the past, the noble now carries the weight of his clan's pride. Unable to allow the Namgung name to be tarnished, the heir puts all his desperation into his blade to try to win at all costs. The swords clash once again, generating intense sparks. As the pressure of the duel increases drastically with every passing second, the two exchange a swift charge in mid-air, displaying terrifying determination not to yield any ground to one another. Surprised by the boy's resilience, the noble questions how he can block the blue sky sword while faltering against the imperial king. So-woon complains about the chatter while defending himself, remembering that not even the records of his past life contained data on that secret art. This was because the Namgung clan never revealed any details about this technique, making it impossible to create a formula to counter it. Without a defense formula for that supreme art, the fight grows increasingly dangerous and risky for the protagonist. So-woon is hurled backward violently, dragging his feet across the ground while his father and the sect elders call out his name in concern. Seeing the danger, So-woon's father demands that he stop the duel, warning him that he has already gotten what he wanted and could end up seriously injured. The man realizes in panic that his rival has released all his internal energy without any restriction in order to dominate the sparring match. Leaning on his own sword, So-woon pants heavily from exhaustion while staring at his opponent, standing in the middle of the sect's destroyed arena. The boy is impressed to see that arrogant noble using his full strength against someone he previously looked down on so much. Although he hates people who walk around showing off high and mighty pride, he acknowledges that his rival's dedication is worthy of respect. Thinking of the great factions of the martial world, the boy internally acknowledges the effort the heir makes to protect his clan's honor, even while despising the arrogance of nobles. So-woon recognizes that his opponent's determination to give his all is impressive. The pink-haired girl clasps her hands together in prayer, her heart in her throat, fearing her older brother might end up seriously hurt. Wiping the blood from his mouth with his hand, So-woon gives a sly smile, showing he still has plenty of strength left to continue the fight. Raising his sharp gaze, the protagonist asserts to himself that he cannot afford to lose this duel under any circumstances. He carries the high pride of being a disciple of the Taya sect, using that conviction to stand firm in the center of the arena. Sensing the shift in the boy's posture, the noble watches him with renewed attention, noting that his determination remains unshaken. Observing the boy's firm attitude, the visitor suspects that the Taya disciple is still hiding his true potential. He remembers that blocking the blue sky technique was not something an ordinary warrior could achieve without extreme preparation. Furthermore, destroying the Iron Sword sect could not have been mere coincidence, proving that the protagonist holds deep secrets. Still, the noble states that he will surpass the boy with the imperial technique and tells his rival to attack, while So-woon smiles, accepting the challenge. With a subtle smile, the hare prepares for the final surge, maintaining a solid stance with his sharp sword pointed straight ahead. Namdung-san charges with insane speed and warns the boy not to blame him if he ends up dying during that devastating blow. So Woon knows there is no ready-made formula to break the imperial art, but he decides to trust his perception to find an opening. He remembers the starting stance of the attack he just saw perfectly, using that exact memory to calculate the precise timing. The noble's eyes widen in absolute shock as he realizes the boy managed to read his movement at the exact moment of impact. Capitalizing on the perfect opening, Sowoon executes the Lesser Sky Sword technique to deliver a lightning-fast counter-attack on his rival. Surprised, the noble clicks his tongue upon seeing that the boy managed to counter with his blade in that brief split-second opening. Without losing momentum, the rival quickly spins his body to readjust his attack and continue the violent exchange of strikes in the arena. The two swords clash brutally again, creating a gigantic shockwave that scatters sharp energy around them both. The noble's feet move rapidly across the ground, maintaining continuous pressure on the Tai protagonist's defense. Shouting in fury, the hare pours every last drop of his energy into the blow, seeking to crush the boy's resistance once and for all. Sowoon absorbs the impact with trembling hands under the crushing pressure of his rival's blade, which tries to force him down at all costs. Gritting his teeth tightly, the boy holds off the onslaught, resisting the pressure with unwavering determination so as not to be defeated in the duel. Hearing the voices of his companions in the background, Sowoon reacts with surprise upon feeling the unconditional support of the sect's children. In the courtyard, the disciples watch apprehensively as the intense exchange of blows unfolds, cheering with all their might for their senior brother's victory. The children cheer in the audience, asking Sowoon to demonstrate the true power and strength of the Taya sect on the battlefield. In the center of the courtyard, the two warriors remain locked in a clash of blades, while the young crowd's cheers echo around them. Hearing the encouraging shouts of his Taya family, a confident smile appears on the boy's face in the middle of the intense fight. Namdung-san's eyes widen in shock as he notices the sudden shift in energy around the boy's sword as he charges without hesitation. Sowoon gathers momentum and surges forward to deliver a decisive strike, wanting to show his juniors what the Taya sect is capable of doing. The children watch in awe as the boy proves that one does not need to be born into a noble clan or possess supreme techniques. He demonstrates that by using only the lesser sky sword technique of the Tai sect, it is possible to reach an extraordinary level of power in battle. With a brilliant charge, Sowoon proves to everyone that anyone can become strong enough to face great legends of the world. The impact of the attack shatters the air around them, reflecting the stunned faces of the young girl and the sect leader who cannot believe the scene. In the fragments flying across the courtyard, Sowoon's sharp gaze can be seen, focusing all his strength into the final movement. The shards of light reveal the Namgan clan hare desperately trying to defend against the perfect blade closing in on him. With absolute focus, Sowoon completes his sword's path, cutting through his opponent's defense at the very last split second. A spray of blood splashes into the air, marking the exact moment the protagonist's swift attack strikes the noble rival. The shadows of the two combatants remain still on the floor of the destroyed arena amidst the absolute silence that washes over the entire sect. The pink-haired girl is completely speechlessly frozen, covering her mouth in shock upon witnessing the unbelievable outcome of the clash. Namgung-san remains motionless with wide eyes, paralyzed by the shock of being surpassed so cleanly and directly. Sowoon appears positioned behind his rival, his sharp blade resting directly against the neck of the famous Namgung clan hero. With a victorious smile on his face and his rival's blood trickling down, Sowoon mockingly asks the noble if he intends to continue. With blood trickling down his neck, Namgung-san stands in utter shock, silently accepting that he was completely defeated in the arena. It all begins with firm footsteps echoing through the courtyard as someone walks slowly toward the spot where the tense showdown just came to a dramatic end. The battle finally comes to a close with the sword, hitting the ground with a loud metallic clatter, while So-woon stares at his opponent, who looks completely shocked by everything. So-woon flashes a smirk full of confidence and whispers that this was just the beginning of an unbelievable display of strength for everyone present. He starts laughing nervously as he feels an overwhelming surge of pain in his injured hand, thinking that he almost lost the limb by risking all of his inner energy on that one hit. The youngest disciples of the sect start shouting with pure joy, celebrating the epic victory of their older brother, while someone desperately calls out for a doctor. The kids rush over to give him a big hug, but So-woon hurriedly tells them to stay back because of the blood, insisting that they call the sect's doctor right away. The elders watch the scene with expressions of absolute shock and concern, unable to believe the level of recklessness and danger the young man took on during the duel. The sect leader watches the end of the fight with a relieved look, though still deeply worried about the severity of the injury the young protagonist suffered on his hand. So-woon smiles happily, while soaking in the affection from all his younger companions, forgetting for a single moment the awful pain he is feeling right then. Namgung-san remains in complete silence with his head down and a deeply thoughtful expression, reflecting on the surprising defeat he just suffered in the arena. A furious shout echoes from inside the main temple, asking if the protagonist has lost his mind completely by taking such a dangerous risk during the fight. His younger sister yells at So-woon in frustration, calling him crazy for grabbing a sharp blade with his bare hands. While he awkwardly tries to calm her down, she points at his heavily bandaged arm and scolds him, saying his hand could have been severed if his opponent had been at full strength in that moment. The other members of the sect also start shouting, accusing the young man of being far too irresponsible, and demand to know the exact diagnosis given by the doctor right now. So-woon tries to reassure everyone with an embarrassed smile, while the doctor in the background gives a serious warning that he narrowly avoided permanent bone damage. The girl completely loses her patience with his carelessness and lands a direct punch right on the protagonist's face, shouting that it was nothing minor like he claimed. So-woon falls to the ground in pain, complaining about her sudden aggression, while the other leaders just watch the scene without doing a single thing to stand up for him. As he stays sprawled on the floor of the room, the protagonist hears the steady sound of dripping water and realizes the atmosphere in the room has shifted drastically and quietly. The young girl holds back her tears and threatens to cut off his hand with her own sword if he ever dares to try another reckless stunt like that in the near future. So-woon is surprised to see her genuine care and tenderly asks her not to cry, giving a sincere promise that he will be much more careful from now on. The sect leader walks slowly towards So-woon with a calm expression and calls him by name, while the girl steps back a bit, still thoroughly pouting from the argument. He gently holds the protagonist's bandaged hand and asks with a sad look why he decided to go so far and take such a wild risk. So-woon shifts his gaze slightly and begins to explain his reasons in a calm tone, revealing what was truly going through his mind when he made that dangerous move. He reveals that his opponent had no manners and disrespectfully ignored the sect by failing to greet the leader properly, on top of being extremely rude to his beloved younger sister. With a firm tone, he states that he simply wanted to teach the arrogant intruder a proper lesson, leaving the two elders completely stunned by the young man's sheer boldness. The blue sky filled with white clouds spreads above the sect, symbolizing that the storm of the confrontation has finally passed, making way for a moment of quiet reflection among them all. Outside, Namgung-san walks slowly across the stone courtyard with heavy, thoughtful steps, moving away from the place where he suffered his major defeat. Suddenly, the silence of the courtyard is broken by a furious shout from inside the temple, calling the protagonist a total fool and startling the young clan warrior. The elder continues to yell at So-woon, asking what silly reason made him want to keep fighting when he had already secured victory in the wager against the imperial technique. With a striking seriousness in his eyes, the protagonist firmly answers that he chose to keep fighting simply because all the younger disciples were watching. The man is left completely speechless, staring wide-eyed at the young fellow as he processes the deep and meaningful response he just heard. So-woon explains that even if he lost a finger, the children saw the sect's sword pointed at the hero's neck and understood that their martial art still holds real potential. He says that instead of feeling envious and wishing they were born into a powerful clan, the youngsters will now have a whole new perspective on their own training. On the courtyard ground, the broken pieces of the practice sword glisten, reflecting the strong resolve of the young disciples who now look at those ruins through fresh eyes. The young man adds that now they will truly believe their own sect's sword can defeat even the famous noble clan, inspiring everyone to keep moving forward. The elder looks away, claiming it is all utter nonsense and that the kids were probably terrified after seeing his finger almost get sliced off. So-woon smiles warmly, saying that if even one disciple out of 100 truly understands the way and the heart of the sect, losing a finger will have been a remarkably small price to pay. The old man grumbles in annoyance, calling those words meaningless foolishness, and turns his back to walk away, trying to hide the overwhelming emotion welling up in his chest. With a flushed face and eyes glistening with tears, the man mumbles to himself that So-woon is still nothing more than a knave, incredibly stubborn kid. As he opens the door to leave the room, the elder runs right into Namgong-san standing patiently in the hallway, completely caught off guard by the young noble's presence. Utterly embarrassed at being caught crying, the old man stares at the visitor with a panic-stricken face while hurriedly trying to brush away his tears. He runs off shouting in frustration, leaving the young clan warrior utterly confused, completely unable to make sense of the elder's dramatic reaction. The sect leader appears right after, offering a warm smile and welcoming the visitor, politely inviting the young warrior into the room for a calm conversation. The blue-haired young man takes a firm step into the room, moving with elegance and respect as he prepares to face the protagonist once again. He offers a formal bow with his hands joined, showing that he has learned to respect the sect and its members following the intense duel he just experienced there. So-woon observes this newfound respectful attitude with a quiet, calm gaze, assessing the demeanor of his former opponent, who now carries himself with genuine dignity. The leader gives an understanding smile and announces that he will leave the matter for the young men to sort out privately, politely asking everyone else to step out and give them space. The sunset sky turns shades of orange and gold, marking the end of a day filled with intense moments and setting the stage for a new era of understanding between the warriors. Seated across from each other at a wooden table, the noble presents the valuable items he promised as payment for the wager, honoring his word with sincerity and respect. Right after, he looks at the protagonist with curiosity and asks what made him risk his own life and suffer such a careless injury in that duel. Namgong-san says solemnly that losing to his clan should never bring shame to anyone, given how things are in the world of martial arts. He adds that losing to the Taya sect carries no dishonor either, but questions whether the warriors here truly live up to those noble words. With a focused gaze, So-woon asks what he truly considers shameful, and whether he is simply judging the world based on big names and raw strength. The young hare's eyes widen at the young man's deep question, feeling his own core beliefs wobble under the weight of the truth he just heard. The protagonist's shadow casts against the wall as he reflects on what would happen if the clan's famous secret techniques were to simply disappear one day. So-woon states firmly that lacking powerful martial arts inside a sect will never mean a complete absence of pride on its part. Gazing at the precious pearl resting on the table, the visitor begins to reflect deeply on the valuable life lesson he just received from his rival. Namgong-san agrees with the young man and admits that So-woon put his hand on the line, a swordsman's most precious asset, proving he possesses possesses a pride far greater than his own. He looks up with genuine eyes and says he hopes to earn the protagonist's forgiveness for all his previous rudeness and disrespect toward the Taiya sect. The visitor offers a respectful bow, apologizing for the arrogant behavior he displayed in the presence of the sect's young heir earlier on. Sowoon flashes a genuine smile, recognizing that his opponent is humble enough to own up to his mistakes and apologize with real dignity. The young man laughs warmly, accepting the apology, and asks the other to forgive any disrespect he himself might have shown during their grand duel. Both young warriors bow to each other at the same time, exchanging a salute filled with mutual respect, permanently sealing the peace between their two lines. The sun slowly sets behind the mountains, wrapping up an intense day of thrilling battles and opening up space for the night to begin. Under the bright light of a full moon in the starry sky, a man's voice shouts out in complete astonishment from inside the main temple upon hearing an unexpected announcement. The elders are left utterly stunned, while the sect leader calmly sips his tea after dropping a shocking piece of news that leaves everyone there speechless. With impressive calm, the leader asks how they feel about finally making Sowoon the official chief disciple of the sect.